Hi and welcome to Romance Audiobook. Prologue. The first rule they teach you in undercover work: never fall in love with the target. I've broken many rules in my life, but never that one. Not until him. They say you'll know when your life is about to change forever. That some primal instinct warns you when everything is about to shatter. They're wrong. The morning director Walsh handed me Dario Moretti's file. I felt nothing special. No premonition. No dread. Just the familiar rush of a new assignment, a new identity to slip into like a second skin. This one's different, Walsh had said, his eyes colder than I'd noticed before. This one could make your career. Or end it, he didn't add. But we both knew the stakes. I've been many women in my career. The seductive investor. The naive secretary. The ruthless competitor. I've worn their faces, spoken their thoughts, felt their desires so completely that sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, I struggle to remember who I really am. Natalia. Just Natalia. A woman with no last name worth keeping, no family waiting for her return, nothing to lose. The perfect weapon. I studied Dario Moretti's photograph for hours that night. His eyes were what struck me first. Dark, intelligent, watching the photographer as if he knew secrets about them they hadn't yet discovered about themselves. I memorized the angles of his face, the way his mouth curved slightly at one corner when he smiled, the calculated elegance of his posture. I learned his weaknesses, his appetites, the pressure points that would make him vulnerable to a woman like the one I would become for him. What I couldn't learn from a file was how his voice would resonate through my body when he spoke my name. How his touch would burn through every defense I'd built. How watching him show unexpected mercy would crack foundations I thought unbreakable. They say the most dangerous animal is one backed into a corner. But they're wrong about that too. The most dangerous is the one who's been caged so long it's forgotten what freedom feels like. Until someone unlocks the door. I was sent to destroy Dario Moretti. To seduce him, betray him, dismantle everything he'd built. Instead, I destroyed myself. The woman I was. The agent I'd been trained to be. And from those ashes rose someone new. Someone who understood that the greatest deception wasn't the one I practiced on him, but the one I'd been living my entire life. They never warn you about that second rule of undercover work. Sometimes, the person you're pretending to be becomes more real than the person you were before. And when that happens, when the lie becomes truth and the mission becomes meaningless against the beating of your own treacherous heart, that's when you truly understand the danger of playing with fire. My name is Natalia. I was the best agent they had. Until I met him. Chapter 1. The folder slapped against the desk between us. Director Walsh leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, waiting for me to open it. This is the one, Natalia. This could end your undercover career in the best way possible. I reached for the folder, keeping my face neutral despite the flutter in my stomach. 5 years in this agency had taught me to never show excitement, or fear. Inside was a photo of a man with dark hair and piercing eyes that seemed to look right through the camera. Handsome in a dangerous way, with a sharp jawline and the hint of a smirk. Dario Moretti, I read aloud, tracing my finger along the edge of the photo. 34, unmarried, head of the Moretti crime family. And your new target, Walsh said, his voice dropping lower. We've been after him for years. Drug trafficking, money laundering, murder, you name it. But he's smart. Too smart. I flipped through the rest of the file. Expensive suits. Private jets. A seaside mansion that looked like it belonged in a magazine. What's the play here? I'm not seeing a way in. Walsh's smile tightened. There's always a way in, Natalia. For someone with your particular skill set. The weight of his words settled over me. I'd been here before. The honeypot trap. The seduction game. The mission where my body became the weapon. So I'm supposed to what? Make him fall in love with me? Not love. We don't need love. Walsh pushed another folder toward me. We need access. Specifically, to encrypted files on his personal server. Intelligence suggests they contain details on every operation, every contact, every dirty secret in his empire. I swallowed hard. And you think he'll just show me where they are because I bat my eyelashes? No. I think he'll show you because he'll trust you. Because you'll be good. The best you've ever been. Walsh leaned forward. Look, we've tried everything else. Bribes, threats, planting moles in his organization. Nothing works. The man trusts no one. He has no weaknesses. Except beautiful women, I guessed, arching an eyebrow. He's selective. But yes. And not just any woman. He likes the ones with fire. The ones who challenge him. Walsh tapped the file. That's where you come in. I studied Dario's photo again. There was something in those eyes. Intelligence. Cunning. A hint of cruelty. But something else too. This isn't just any assignment, Walsh continued. You get these files, you take down the entire Moretti organization. You'll be set for life. New identity, new home, pension, the works. Freedom. The word he wasn't saying, but it hung in the air between us. Freedom from this life, these endless personas I put on and took off like costumes. Timeline. I asked, already mentally cataloging what I'd need. 2 months, tops. Any longer and he might get suspicious. Walsh slid a small device across the desk. Standard comms. Check-in weekly, emergency protocols unchanged. I picked up the device, smaller than my thumbnail. Easy to conceal, easy to forget. Like me. When do I start? Tonight. Walsh handed me an invitation. Annual charity gala at the Grand Hotel. Moretti never misses it. It's his version of legitimacy. My heart thumped harder. No prep time. No chance to settle into the role. Just dive in, as usual. What's my cover? Olivia Reed. Art dealer. New in town, looking to make connections. Backgrounds all in there. He nodded toward the second folder. You have 6 hours to become her. I stood, gathering the files. 5 years of doing this, and it never got easier, that moment of leaving myself behind. Natalia. Walsh's voice stopped me at the door. Be careful with this one. Moretti's not like the others. He's perceptive. If he catches even a hint that you're not who you say you are. I know, I cut him off. I'm dead. The words tasted metallic on my tongue. This wasn't my first dance with death. It's not just that. Walsh's face hardened. We're not the only ones after him. If you blow this, if you spook him and he goes to ground. I won't blow it, I said, squaring my shoulders. Back in my apartment, I spread the files across my bed. Dario Moretti stared up at me from a dozen different angles. At charity events. Exiting his car. On his yacht with models draped around him like jewelry. I picked up one photo where he was alone, looking out at the ocean. There was something lonely in his posture. Something almost human. Sorry, Dario, I whispered, running my finger along his face. You picked the wrong life to live. I stepped into my closet, pushing aside the clothes that belonged to Natalia. Tonight, Olivia Reed needed to be born. Beautiful, confident Olivia who would catch the eye of a dangerous man. As I searched for the perfect dress, I tried to ignore the nagging voice in my head. The one that always whispered the same question before these missions. How much of myself would I have to lose this time? And would I ever get it back? Chapter 2. The Grand Hotel ballroom shimmered with wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over silk gowns and black tuxedos. I adjusted my emerald dress, borrowed from the agency, worth more than 3 months of my salary, and surveyed the room through the eyes of Olivia Reed, art dealer extraordinaire. I spotted him immediately. Dario Moretti stood near the bar, a glass of amber liquid in one hand. Unlike the photos, which couldn't capture his full presence, in person he radiated authority. He wore his tuxedo like armor, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders. 3 men surrounded him, laughing too hard at whatever he'd just said. Target acquired, I whispered to myself, taking a champagne flute from a passing waiter. I circled the room, making small talk with strangers, always keeping Dario in my peripheral vision. The file said he preferred making the first move, but I couldn't risk him leaving early. I needed to orchestrate an accidental meeting. My opportunity came when he finally separated from his entourage, moving toward a quiet corner with a large painting, a splash of violent reds and blacks that seemed fitting for his attention. I approached slowly, glass in hand, pretending to admire the artwork from a different angle. "Terrible, isn't it?" I said, not looking at him directly. I felt rather than saw him turn. "Excuse me." His voice was deeper than I'd imagined, with just a hint of an accent, Italian heritage that hadn't fully faded despite being American-born. I gestured to the painting with my glass. "The composition is pretentious. The artist is clearly copying Rothko's style, without understanding the emotional depth behind it." I turned to face him finally, letting surprise register on my face. "Oh, I'm sorry. Was that rude? Sometimes I forget not everyone wants my professional opinion." His dark eyes assessed me, not bothering to hide their journey from my face down to my heels and back up again. "And what exactly is your professional opinion?" "I'm an art dealer." I extended my hand. "Olivia Reed." He took it, his grip firm but not aggressive. "Dario Moretti." "I know," I said, allowing a small smile. The key was to seem informed but not overly interested. "Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Moretti." "My reputation?" His mouth quirked. "And what reputation would that be, Ms. Reed?" "As a collector with discerning taste." I sipped my champagne, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Although I have to question that taste now, if you're admiring this particular piece." A flash of genuine amusement crossed his face. "I was actually thinking how much I dislike it myself." "Then we have something in common." "Perhaps." He finished his drink, then set the glass on a passing waiter's tray. "Are you new to the city? I don't recall seeing you at these events before." "Just moved my gallery here last month. New York was becoming predictable." "And you prefer unpredictable?" "I prefer interesting." His eyes narrowed slightly, assessing me in a new way. I held his gaze, letting the moment stretch into slight discomfort, a technique I'd learned early. "Make them wonder about you. What brings an art dealer to a charity gala for children's hospitals?" he asked finally. "The same thing that brings you, I imagine. Connections." I leaned slightly closer. "And besides, it's for a good cause." He laughed, a sound that held genuine amusement. "You think I'm here for the children?" "No," I answered honestly. "I think you're here because appearances matter in your world." His smile faded slightly. I'd pushed too far, too fast. "I apologize," I said quickly. "That was presumptuous." "It was honest," he corrected. "Refreshing, actually." A tall man in a crisp suit approached, leaning to whisper something in Dario's ear. His expression hardened for just a moment before returning to the polished mask. "Unfortunately, Ms. Reed, I have business to attend to." He reached into his jacket and produced a business card, thick, cream-colored paper with just his name and a number embossed in black. "But I'd be interested in hearing more about your professional opinions. Perhaps you could show me some pieces worth my time." I took the card, letting my fingers brush against his. "I'd be delighted." His eyes lingered on mine a moment longer than necessary. "I look forward to it." I watched him leave, flanked by what I now recognized as bodyguards. My heart was beating faster than it should for a simple introduction. The file hadn't prepared me for his intensity, the way his focus made everything else in the room disappear. I slipped his card into my clutch, alongside the miniature recording device that had captured every word of our exchange. Phase 1 complete, contact established. As I made my way to the ladies' room to report in, I tried to ignore the unsettling thought that had crept into my mind. For just a moment, when he'd looked at me with those penetrating eyes, I'd forgotten I was playing a role. And that was dangerous, for more reasons than one. Chapter 3. 3 days after the gala, I stood at the gates of Dario Moretti's estate, clutching a leather portfolio of art catalogues. The security guard checked my ID, the perfectly forged Olivia Reed driver's license, against his list. "Ms. Reed," he confirmed, handing it back. "Mr. Moretti is expecting you." The iron gate swung open, revealing a winding driveway flanked by perfectly manicured gardens. At the end stood Dario's mansion, modern, all sleek lines and glass, perched on the coastline like it had grown from the cliffs themselves. I'd called him yesterday, casual but confident, mentioning a collection that might interest him. He'd invited me to his home immediately. Either he was genuinely interested in art or, more likely, he was interested in me. A different guard met me at the door, scanning me with a metal detector before leading me through the house. The interior was minimalist, expensive furniture, few personal touches. Exactly what I'd expected from a man who kept everyone at a distance. Ms. Reed. Dario's voice drew my attention to the far end of the living room. He looked different here. Dark jeans, a grey button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. More relaxed, but no less dangerous. Mr. Moretti. I smiled, crossing the room with measured steps. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Dario, please. He gestured to a glass table overlooking the ocean. Would you like coffee? Wine? Coffee would be lovely. He nodded to the guard, who disappeared silently. Your home is stunning, I said, taking the seat he offered. The architecture complements the view perfectly. I prefer to surround myself with beauty. His eyes lingered on me, making his meaning clear. Now, show me what was so important it couldn't wait. I opened my portfolio, spreading out photos of paintings. All real, all from my supposed gallery. The agency had prepared everything meticulously, even creating a website that would stand up to scrutiny. This collection just came from a private estate in Europe, I explained, sliding a particular image toward him. The owner died without heirs. I thought this piece might interest you. He studied the painting. A dark, moody seascape with a single lighthouse beam cutting through storm clouds. You've done your research, he said, impressed. I do collect seascapes. That's my job, I replied. Understanding what people want, sometimes before they know themselves. The guard returned with coffee. Dario waited until we were alone again before speaking. And what do you think I want, Olivia? A direct challenge. I could feel him testing me, trying to see if I'd retreat. Authenticity, I said, meeting his gaze. Things of real value in a world full of fakes. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps. He hadn't expected that answer. You're right. He took a sip of his coffee. I despise imitations. My heart beat faster. Was he suspicious already? I maintained my composure, turning the conversation back to the paintings, discussing prices and provenance with practiced ease. As we talked, I scanned the room discreetly, noting security cameras in the corners, the absence of personal photos. And most importantly, the heavy wooden door to the right. His office, according to the intelligence reports. Where his computer would be. Where the files waited. You know, he said suddenly, interrupting my assessment, I find myself in need of someone with your expertise. Oh. I raised an eyebrow. My collection has grown. Haphazardly over the years. I buy what appeals to me, but I've never properly catalogued or insured everything. He leaned back in his chair. I could use a consultant. Someone to organize it all, perhaps suggest new acquisitions. It was better than I could have hoped for, a legitimate reason to return, to spend time in his home. I'd be happy to help, I said, trying not to sound too eager. Though I should warn you, I'm very thorough. And not inexpensive. He laughed. Money isn't an issue. And I appreciate thoroughness. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening slightly. Unfortunately, I have a meeting I can't postpone. He stood. But I'd like you to come back tomorrow. 10 o'clock. We can discuss the details. I gathered my portfolio. I'll be here. He walked me to the door himself, no guard this time. At the threshold, he took my hand, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a touch too deliberate to be accidental. Until tomorrow, Olivia. The way he said my false name sent a shiver down my spine, one I couldn't entirely attribute to professional anxiety. Back in my car, I activated my secure phone. Contact established, I reported. He's hired me as an art consultant. I'll have regular access to the house. Excellent work, Walsh's voice crackled through the speaker. Any sign of the office? Located, but heavily secured. I'll need time to gain his trust. Time is the one thing we don't have, Natalia. Get those files as soon as possible. I ended the call and stared back at the mansion. Through one of the massive windows, I could see Dario now talking to two men in suits, his posture tense, authoritative. This was the real test beginning. Not just getting close enough to find the files, but doing it without losing myself in the process. Because despite all my training, despite knowing exactly who and what Dario Moretti was, that electric moment when his hand touched mine had felt anything but fake. And that terrified me more than the guards, the guns, or the criminals I was walking among. My body was already responding to him. I couldn't let my heart follow suit. Chapter 4. 2 weeks into my role as Dario's art consultant, I'd developed a routine. 3 days a week, I arrived at the mansion at 10, catalogued pieces in various rooms, and had lunch with him when his schedule allowed. I documented over 50 artworks, created a detailed spreadsheet, and established myself as efficient, knowledgeable, and always slightly flirtatious. What I hadn't done was get anywhere near the files. His office remained off-limits, the door locked with a keypad. He took calls in Italian when I was present, his voice dropping to ensure I couldn't understand. And despite our growing comfort with each other, his eyes still followed me with calculation beneath the attraction. Today, I was photographing a sculpture in the East Wing when I heard raised voices from the adjacent room, Dario's informal meeting space. I moved closer to the door, left slightly ajar. You promised protection, and now my cousin is dead. A man's voice, desperate and angry. They found him in the river, Moretti. His hands were gone. Lower your voice, Vega. Dario's tone was ice. Your cousin ignored my instructions. He sold on another family's territory after I explicitly told him not to. He has had 3 kids. And now they have a dead father because he was greedy and stupid. The sound of someone being slammed against a wall made me flinch. You think you can threaten me? Dario's voice was deadly quiet now. In my own home? I backed away from the door, heart pounding, but not fast enough. The door swung open, and one of Dario's security men shoved a struggling, bloody-nosed man out. He spotted me instantly. Who the fuck is she? He spat. Dario appeared in the doorway, straightening his cuffs. His eyes found mine, narrowing slightly at the camera in my hands. Ms. Reed is cataloguing my art collection, he said calmly. And she was just leaving for the day. Antonio, escort her out. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I began. Now Olivia, he cut me off, voice brooking no argument. The guard led me away as Dario turned back to the bleeding man. I glanced over my shoulder just in time to see Dario's fist connect with the man's stomach, doubling him over. Outside, the guard handed me my purse. Mr. Moretti will call you, he said, making it clear I was dismissed. I drove to a coffee shop, hands shaking on the wheel. I ordered a latte I couldn't taste and called Walsh. He's dangerous, I whispered into the secure phone. I just saw him. We know what he is, Walsh interrupted. That's why we need those files. Are you in position yet? No. The office is locked, and he doesn't trust me enough. Make him trust you, Natalia. That's your job. 3 of our informants have gone silent this week. Time is running out. The call ended. I stared at my reflection in the coffee shop window, barely recognizing myself in the elegant clothes and subtle makeup of Olivia Reed. What would Dario do to me if he discovered my true purpose? Would I end up like Vega's cousin, floating in the river? My phone rang, Dario's number. I answered on the 3rd ring, keeping my voice steady. Olivia? Are you all right? He sounded concerned, not angry. I'm fine. Just surprised by what I saw. Where are you now? I hesitated, then told him the truth. The coffee shop on Brewer Street. Stay there. I'm coming to get you. Before I could protest, he hung up. 20 minutes later, his black Maserati pulled up outside. He got out himself, no driver, no security. He slid into the booth across from me, looking more human than I'd ever seen him, worried, perhaps even embarrassed. "I apologize for what you witnessed today," he said quietly. "That's not a side of my business I wanted you exposed to." I studied his face. Is he still alive? That man. Vega? Yes. Bruised but alive. His eyes held mine. "I'm not a murderer, Olivia." The lie slipped easily from my lips. "I never thought you were." "No." He smiled slightly. "Most people who see me lose my temper don't wait around for explanations." "I'm not most people." "No, you're not." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. "That's why I came to find you. I don't want you to disappear." This was my chance, to deepen his trust, to get closer. "It would take more than that to scare me away," I said, turning my hand to hold his properly. His phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "I need to handle something. Come with me." "Where?" "Just trust me." I followed him to his car, my training screaming that this was reckless, that I should make an excuse. But I needed to be where he was. Needed to find those files. We drove to the waterfront, to a small, run-down playground. Dario parked and pointed to a bench where a woman sat with a little boy, maybe 4 years old. "That's Vega's sister and his nephew," he explained. "The boy has leukemia. Expensive treatments. That's why Vega's been desperate for money." As we watched, a man in a suit approached them, handing the woman an envelope. She opened it, covered her mouth, then nodded repeatedly in tearful thanks. "What did you do?" I asked. "Paid for the next round of the boy's treatment." His jaw tightened. Vega should have come to me directly instead of breaking rules. I take care of my people's families, even when they fuck up. The complexity of the man beside me hit me full force. The same hands that had struck Vega were now ensuring his nephew's survival. "Why show me this?" I asked. He turned to face me, his expression unguarded for once. "Because I need you to understand that my world isn't black and white. And because I'm tired of hiding who I am from you." The genuine emotion in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't in the file. This man who beat his subordinates one moment and saved children the next. And in that moment, watching the relief on the woman's face as she hugged her son, I did something unforgivable. I defended him in my mind. "Thank you," I said softly, "for trusting me with this." He drove me back to my car in silence. Before I got out, he took my hand again. "Tomorrow? Same time?" I nodded, unable to trust my voice. That night, in my reports to Walsh, I left out Dario's kindness to the boy. Left out how his touch had lingered on my skin long after we'd parted. Some truths, I was learning, were more dangerous than lies. Chapter 5. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dario's living room. Thunder shook the glass as I finished photographing the last painting in his collection, a stormy seascape that matched the weather outside. "Perfect timing," Dario said, entering with 2 glasses of red wine. "I think we've earned a break." 4 weeks had passed since I started working for him. 4 weeks of careful navigation, of building trust, of learning his routines. I knew his favorite wine, Barolo, when he exercised, 5 a.m., how he took his coffee, black, 1 sugar. But I was no closer to the files. I accepted the wine, deliberately letting our fingers touch. The cataloging is complete. I've organized everything by period, value, and insurance needs. Efficient as always. He sat beside me on the sofa, closer than strictly professional. "I'm impressed with your work, Olivia." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. The sharp angles, the intensity that never quite disappeared even when he was relaxed. In moments like this, I could almost forget why I was here. Almost. The recording device pressed against my ribcage, hidden in my bra. Today was different from other days. Walsh had insisted I wear the wire, convinced Dario might finally reveal something important. "So what happens now?" I asked, sipping the excellent wine. "Your collection is catalogued, your insurance updated. Now." His eyes held mine over the rim of his glass. Now I find another reason to keep you coming back. Heat rose to my cheeks, and not just from the wine. Over the weeks, our flirtation had intensified, but neither of us had crossed the line. Until now, it seemed. And what reason might that be? I asked, my voice lower. He set his glass down, turning to face me fully. I think you know. The moment stretched between us, electric with possibility. This was what I'd been working toward, getting close enough to him that he would let down his guard completely. It was my job. My mission. So why did it suddenly feel wrong? Dario, You've been in my home for weeks, Olivia, he interrupted softly. You've seen sides of me, of my life, that few people ever do. And you're still here. Yes, I whispered. His hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing across my lower lip. Why? The question caught me off guard. I'd prepared so many lies, but in that moment, a sliver of truth escaped. Because I'm drawn to you, I said. Even when I shouldn't be. Something flashed in his eyes, triumph, relief, desire, before he leaned forward and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning. Then, as I responded, it deepened into something hungry and urgent. His hands slid into my hair, cradling my head as though I were something precious. I tasted wine on his tongue, felt the barely restrained power in his body as he pulled me closer. My mind screamed warnings. This wasn't supposed to be real, I wasn't supposed to feel this rush of desire, this wasn't in the mission parameters. But my body surrendered, arms wrapping around his neck as I kissed him back with equal fervor. When we finally broke apart, his eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them, pupils dilated with want. I've been wanting to do that since the gala, he admitted, voice rough. What took you so long? I asked, breathless. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. Caution. I don't usually mix business with pleasure. And now I don't care. His hands slid down my sides, resting at my waist. I want you, Olivia. I have from the moment you criticized that terrible painting. The recording device seemed to burn against my skin. Every word, every sound being transmitted back to Walsh and the team. The thought sickened me suddenly. Dario kissed me again, deeper this time, his hands moving to unbutton my blouse. As the fabric parted, panic flared through me. The wire. He was about to find the wire. I broke the kiss, pressing my forehead to his. Wait, I gasped. Not here. His eyes questioned, then understood. Bedroom. I nodded, mind racing. I needed to get away, just for a moment. Remove the wire. Continue the mission. Show me the way, I whispered, trying to sound seductive rather than desperate. He stood, taking my hand and leading me toward the grand staircase. Each step felt like walking toward both salvation and damnation. I need to use the bathroom first, I said as we reached the top of the stairs. Freshen up a bit. He pointed to a door. Take your time. Inside the opulent bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against it, heart racing. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I was losing control of the situation, of myself. With trembling fingers, I unbuttoned my blouse further and reached for the small black device taped to my skin. I had to get rid of it before things went further. I could make excuses to Walsh later. Just as I peeled the tape back, I heard a sound from the bedroom, a drawer opening and closing. Curiosity overtook caution. I buttoned my blouse partway and cracked the bathroom door open. Dario stood by his nightstand, a small object in his hand. A gun? No, a phone. A second phone I'd never seen before. He was typing something, his back to me. I eased the door wider for a better look. As I did, the ancient hinge creaked. He spun around instantly, eyes finding mine in the mirror across the room. For one frozen moment, we stared at each other, his expression shifting from surprise to calculation. Then his gaze dropped to my partially open blouse, to the edge of black tape and wire now visible against my skin. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by something colder than ice. Dario, I can explain, I began, but the words died in my throat. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, grabbed my arm, and yanked me forward. His fingers found the wire, ripping it free with such force that I gasped in pain. "Who are you?" he demanded, voice terrifyingly calm as he held the recording device between us. "And who sent you?" Chapter 6. Dario's fingers dug into my arm as he held the wire between us, his eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. "I asked you a question," he said, voice deadly quiet. "Who sent you?" My training kicked in. Denial, confusion, indignation. "I don't know what you're talking about. That's Don't." He cut me off, squeezing tighter. "Don't insult my intelligence. This is a recording device. Professional grade. Who are you working for? FBI? DEA?" My mind raced through possibilities. The mission was blown, but I could still survive this, if I played it right. "Dario, please. You're hurting me." His grip loosened slightly, but his eyes remained merciless. "Start talking. Now." I let tears fill my eyes, real fear making the performance easier. "I'm a private investigator. Your ex-girlfriend hired me." His eyebrows shot up. "Which one?" "Sofia Verles. She thinks you're hiding assets before you break up." He stared at me for a long moment, then laughed. A harsh, humorless sound. "Sofia and I ended things 2 years ago. Try again." My heart pounded painfully. Okay. It's your business partner, Marco. He thinks you're cutting him out of deals." "I don't have a partner named Marco." He crushed the wire in his fist. One more lie, and this conversation moves somewhere far less comfortable. The threat hung between us, made more terrifying by how calmly he delivered it. I'd seen what he did to people who crossed him. "Insurance fraud," I whispered, offering a more believable lie. "I work for Hartford Insurance. They think you're inflating the value of your art collection." Something shifted in his expression, not belief, but consideration. He released my arm, stepping back to create distance between us. "How long?" he asked. "What?" "How long have you been lying to me? Was anything real?" The hurt in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't just anger, this was betrayal. And somehow, that made it worse. "The art expertise is real," I said softly. "I really do know paintings. But not Olivia Reed. That's not your name, is it?" I hesitated, then shook my head. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. For a moment, he looked almost vulnerable. Then his shoulders straightened, and when he faced me again, the mask was back in place. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, voice businesslike. "You're going to stay here tonight. As my guest." The euphemism wasn't lost on me. "You mean as your prisoner?" "I prefer guest under close supervision." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Tomorrow, we'll continue this conversation. After I've had a chance to verify a few things." "And if I refuse to stay?" He arched an eyebrow. "Do you think that's an option?" As if on cue, the bedroom door opened, and 2 security guards appeared. They must have been watching on cameras, waiting for Dario's signal. "Take Ms. Reed to the East Guest Suite," he instructed. "Make sure she's comfortable. But not too comfortable." One guard gripped my elbow, surprisingly gentle but undeniably firm. "Dario, please," I said, allowing real desperation into my voice. "This is a misunderstanding. Save it." He turned away, dismissing me entirely. "We'll talk in the morning. If you behave, you might even walk out of here." The implication that I might not was clear. The guards led me down the hall to a bedroom I'd never seen during my cataloging work. It was luxurious but impersonal. Cream walls, generic art, king-sized bed. One guard checked the room for weapons or escape tools while the other kept me by the door. "Bathrooms through there," the first guard said, returning. "No windows, no phone. The door will be locked from outside." "What about my clothes? My phone?" "Mr. Moretti will decide what you need." He gestured to the closet. "There are things in there you can use." They left, the lock clicking with finality. I immediately checked the room for surveillance cameras, finding 2, one aimed at the bed, one at the sitting area. The bathroom appeared clean, at least. In the closet, I found women's clothing in various sizes. The thought that Dario kept a stock of clothes for female guests made me shudder. I wasn't the first woman confined here, it seemed. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to think clearly. Walsh would know something had gone wrong when my transmission cut off. Protocol dictated a 24-hour waiting period before extraction was considered. By tomorrow night, they might start looking for me, or they might write me off as compromised. I was on my own. Hours passed. Night fell. No one came with food or water. A power play, reminding me who controlled even my basic needs now. Finally, around midnight, a soft knock preceded the door opening. Dario himself entered, carrying a tray with a sandwich, water, and what looked like whiskey. He set it on the side table and stood watching me, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," I said cautiously. "Even prisoners get fed." He pushed the whiskey toward me. "You look like you could use this." I took the glass but didn't drink. "Poison wouldn't be your style." "No," he agreed. "Too impersonal." The implied threat hung in the air between us. "Why not just kill me?" I asked, the question that had been haunting me for hours. "Why the guest room? The food?" He sat in the armchair across from me, studying my face. "Because something doesn't add up. Insurance investigators don't use this level of equipment, or spend weeks gaining trust before making a move." I remained silent. "So I'm giving you one chance to tell me who you really are, and what you're really after." His voice softened dangerously. "Because despite everything, I don't want to hurt you." The sincerity in his voice was the most frightening thing yet. "I can't tell you that," I whispered. "Can't? Or won't?" "Both." He nodded, as though he'd expected this answer. "Then we're at an impasse." He stood, moving toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, was any of it real? The connection between us?" The question blindsided me. In his eyes, I saw something I recognized from my own reflection lately. Confusion, hurt, a desperate need to know if what they'd felt had been entirely manufactured. In that moment, another sliver of truth escaped. More than it should have been. He absorbed this, his jaw tightening. Then he nodded once and left, the lock clicking behind him. I took a long swallow of the whiskey, welcoming the burn. Then I curled on the bed, still fully dressed, and closed my eyes. Tomorrow would determine whether I lived or died. Whether I completed my mission or failed entirely. And worst of all, a part of me, a part one didn't want to acknowledge, was more afraid of never seeing Dario again than of whatever he might do to me. Chapter 7. Morning arrived with harsh sunlight through curtains I hadn't closed. I'd slept fitfully, dreams filled with chase scenes and Dario's voice. The sandwich remained untouched, hunger overshadowed by fear. The lock clicked. I sat up quickly, smoothing my rumpled clothes. A woman entered, middle-aged, with kind eyes that contrasted with her businesslike manner. "Mr. Moretti sent these," she said, placing clothes on the bed, jeans, a simple blouse, underwear. She set down a tray with coffee and toast. "Bathroom's yours. You have 20 minutes to get ready." "For what?" She didn't answer, just left, locking the door behind her. I showered quickly, the hot water a brief comfort. The clothes fit perfectly, unsettlingly so, as if Dario had memorized my measurements. I ate standing up, the toast tasteless but necessary. Exactly 20 minutes later, the door opened again. This time a guard waited, gesturing for me to follow. He led me downstairs, not to Dario's office as I'd expected, but to the kitchen. Dario stood at the massive island counter, cutting fruit with disturbing precision. Shirtless, wearing only black sweatpants, he looked like he'd just finished working out. A thin sheen of sweat still clung to his shoulders, highlighting the defined muscles of his back. He glanced up as I entered, knife pausing mid-slice. "Sleep well?" The casual question, as if I were a houseguest rather than a prisoner, threw me off balance. "Not particularly." "Honesty. That's refreshing." He pushed a bowl of fruit toward me. "Hungry?" I took a piece of pineapple, more to have something to do with my hands than from appetite. "What happens now?" "Now we have a conversation." He set the knife down. No lies this time. The guard left, but I harbored no illusions that we were truly alone. There would be cameras, other security nearby. Are you going to torture me for information? I asked, proud that my voice didn't waver. Surprise flickered across his face, followed by something like hurt. Is that what you think of me? I don't know what to think anymore. He studied me for a long moment. What's your real name? I hesitated. My name was one piece of information that wouldn't matter. Not when he'd already seen my face. Natalia. Natalia, he repeated, as if tasting the name. That suits you better than Olivia. He moved around the island, closing the distance between us. I tensed but held my ground. I spent all night checking records, he said. There's no Olivia Reed with your credentials in any insurance company. No private investigator license. No art dealer registration. I remained silent. Which leaves government, he continued. FBI, maybe. Or DEA. I kept my expression neutral, but he caught something. A flicker of confirmation, perhaps. So I was right. His mouth twisted. They finally sent someone they thought I wouldn't suspect. His hand came up, fingertips brushing my cheek so lightly I might have imagined it. I flinched away. Don't touch me. Pain flashed in his eyes before his expression hardened. You didn't mind yesterday. That was before I knew you'd keep me prisoner. And what did you think would happen when I discovered the truth? He threw his hands up in frustration. That I'd just let you go, free to tell your handlers everything you've seen? Everything you've heard? I stopped, realizing I hadn't thought that far ahead. The mission was supposed to be clean. Get in, get the files, get out. You didn't have an exit plan, he guessed, reading my face too accurately. They didn't give you one, did they? These people you work for, they sent you in alone, with no backup. I pushed past him, needing space to think. You don't know anything about who I work for. I know enough. His voice softened. They're using you, Natalia. Setting you up as a sacrificial pawn. Like you've never used people? I spun to face him. I've seen how you treat those who cross you. And how I treat those loyal to me. He stepped closer. How I protected that boy. How I would have protected you. Stop it. My voice shook. Don't pretend this was anything more than. Then what? A job for you? A conquest for me? His eyes blazed. We both know it went beyond that. I backed away until I hit the counter. What do you want from me, Dario? The truth, he said simply. What were you looking for? What files? I should have stayed silent. Should have stuck to protocol. But his words about being a sacrificial pawn had struck too close to home. Encrypted data, I said finally. Information on your operations, your networks. Relief crossed his face, not at what I'd said, but that I'd said anything at all. And if you got this information? Your organization would be dismantled. You'd go to prison. He nodded slowly, as if confirming a theory. Then he turned away, opening the refrigerator to pull out ingredients. Eggs, vegetables, cheese. What are you doing? I asked, confused by this mundane shift. Making breakfast. I'm hungry. He cracked eggs into a bowl. And we need to talk. Talk? I just admitted I was sent to destroy you. Yes. He glanced up, expression unreadable. But you didn't go through with it, did you? You had weeks of access. You could have planted bugs, stolen passwords. But you didn't. I was building trust. You were hesitating. He pointed the whisk at me. I want to know why. I had no answer, at least none I was willing to admit, to him or myself. He continued cooking, the domesticity of the scene surreal against our conversation. Within minutes, he'd prepared 2 omelets, sliding one onto a plate for me. Eat, he said, setting it on the island. I don't poison food either. Hunger won over suspicion. I took a bite. It was delicious, perfectly seasoned. We ate in silence, the strangeness of the situation settling over us. Here I was, having breakfast with the man I'd been sent to betray, who now held my life in his hands. Why am I still alive? I asked finally. Why all this? I gestured to the food, the clothes. He set his fork down, meeting my eyes directly. Because despite what you think you know about me, Natalia, I'm not the monster in this story. His gaze was steady, honest in a way that cut through my defenses. And because I need to understand what was real between us, and what wasn't. The truth of it hung in the air between us. Neither of us had expected to feel what we felt. Neither had been prepared for the lines to blur. And as I looked at him across the kitchen island, I realized with growing dread that my greatest danger wasn't what he might do to me. It was what I might be willing to do for him. Chapter 8. Days passed in a strange limbo. I wasn't exactly a prisoner anymore. My door remained unlocked, I could wander parts of the house freely, but guards shadowed me constantly, and the property gates remained closed. A gilded cage. Dario kept his distance, busy with whatever business occupied his days. We shared silent dinners where neither of us mentioned my true purpose or his decision to keep me here. The unspoken tension grew thicker each day. On the fifth evening, I sat on the terrace watching the sunset when I heard his footsteps behind me. It's beautiful, he said, gesturing to the orange-streaked sky over the ocean. Is that why you built here? The sunsets. He sat beside me, closer than necessary. Partly. And because it's defensible. Limited access points. I smiled despite myself. Always the strategist. It's kept me alive. He studied my profile. You can't stay in limbo forever, Natalia. My heart stuttered at his use of my real name. What are my options? That depends on you. He swirled amber liquid in his glass. On how honest you're willing to be. What do you want to know? Everything. His gaze was intense. Starting with who you really are. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows. In the fading light, it felt easier to speak truths I'd guarded so carefully. I work for a specialized government division, I said finally. Not FBI, not exactly DEA. Something adjacent. He nodded, unsurprised. And they recruited you how? The question touched a wound I rarely acknowledged. They found me when I had nothing left to lose. His eyes softened with curiosity. I could have stopped there, should have. But something in me needed him to understand. I grew up in foster care, I continued, the words coming slowly. My mother died when I was 8. Drug overdose. I'm sorry. Don't be. She chose drugs over me 1,000 times before that. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Anyway, I got passed around the system. Learned to adapt, to become whoever each new home needed me to be. A natural undercover agent, he observed. Yes. By 18, I was good at reading people, becoming what they wanted. I looked out at the darkening water. I put myself through college. Criminal justice major. Then the agency found me. They recognized your talent. They recognized someone with no attachments. No one to miss me if a mission went wrong. I hadn't meant to reveal so much, but the truth spilled out. 5 years of assignments. Different names, different stories. And different men to seduce for information. His voice tightened. Sometimes. I met his gaze directly. But never like this. Like what? Like. I gestured between us, unable to name what had developed. This wasn't supposed to happen. He took my hand, his touch warm and steady. What wasn't? Feeling something real. The admission hung in the air between us. He didn't speak, just waited for me to continue. After my mother, I promised myself I'd never trust anyone completely. It was safer that way. I withdrew my hand from his. My job made that easy. New identity every few months. Never staying long enough to form connections. Until me, he said softly. You were just supposed to be another target. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The dangerous crime boss who needed to be taken down. And now? I turned to face him fully. Now I don't know what you are to me. And that terrifies me more than anything you could do. The confession cost me something. A piece of armor I'd worn so long I'd forgotten it wasn't my skin. Dario was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching mine. Then he stood, offering his hand. Come with me. Where? Somewhere we can talk without cameras or guards. I hesitated, then took his hand. He led me through the house to a door I'd never been through, heavy wood with an electronic lock. His private office. The room I'd been trying to access for weeks. He entered a code, then placed his palm on a scanner. The door clicked open. After you, he said softly. I stepped inside, unable to hide my surprise. The office was nothing like I'd imagined, warm, almost cozy, with bookshelves lining one wall, a massive desk, and a sitting area with leather couches. He closed the door behind us. No cameras in here. No listening devices. Just us. Why show me this now? I asked, gesturing to the room I'd been sent to infiltrate. Because I want you to understand something. He moved to his desk, unlocking a drawer. You weren't wrong about the encrypted files. They exist. My pulse quickened. Dario. But they're not what your agency thinks. He pulled out a thumb drive. This is what they sent you for. What they're willing to sacrifice you for. What's on it? Insurance, he said simply. Names, dates, recordings. Evidence that would damage a lot of powerful people if it ever came to light. Blackmail material, I translated. Protection, he corrected. I didn't build an empire by being naive. I've recorded every corrupt official, every dirty cop, every politician who's taken my money. The implications hit me. If you're arrested, it all comes out. Mutually assured destruction. He set the drive on the desk between us. This is what your handlers want. Not just to take me down, but to clean up their own mess. Silence the evidence. I shook my head, not wanting to believe him. No. They're the good guys. They enforce the law. There are no good guys in this story, Natalia. His voice was gentle but firm. Just people protecting their interests. Could he be telling the truth? The mission had felt rushed from the start. Walsh's insistence that I move quickly, the lack of extraction plan. Why are you showing me this? I whispered. Because I need you to make a choice. A real one, not the false choice they gave you. He stepped closer. And because I'm tired of pretending I don't care about you. The confession hung in the air between us. Your world and mine can never mix, I said, voicing the obstacle that seemed insurmountable. Maybe not. He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Or maybe the lines between our worlds were never as clear as we thought. His touch lingered on my cheek. This time, I didn't pull away. I've spent my life becoming other people, I said softly. I don't even know who the real Natalia is anymore. I see her, he whispered. Even when you were pretending to be someone else, I saw glimpses of the real you. That's what kept pulling me toward you, even when my instincts warned me to be careful. Something broke open inside me, a dam holding back emotions I'd suppressed for years. Before I could reconsider, I leaned forward and pressed my lips to his. Unlike our first kiss, this one held no deception, no ulterior motive. It was raw, honest, terrifying in its authenticity. His arms encircled me, pulling me against his chest as the kiss deepened. I wound my fingers through his hair, letting myself feel everything I'd been fighting against. When we finally broke apart, breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his. What happens now? I asked. Now we figure it out. Together. He brushed his thumb across my lower lip. But first, you need to decide. Your agency or the truth. Their version of justice, or something more complicated. The choice loomed before me, return to the only life I'd known, or step into uncertain territory with a man I was supposed to betray. I need time, I whispered. Time I can give you. He kissed me again, softly. But not much. They'll be looking for you soon, if they aren't already. As his lips found mine again, I knew my decision was already made, had been made the moment I told him my real name. The lines between right and wrong, duty and desire, had blurred beyond recognition. And standing in the arms of the man I'd been sent to destroy, I couldn't bring myself to care. Chapter 9. Night crept over the mansion, shadows stretching across Dario's office as we remained locked in our embrace. His hands caressed my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him, or thought I knew. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered against my lips. "No more hiding. No more lies." The request was simple, but the implications vast. Crossing this line would mean betraying everything I'd worked for. Yet the thought of returning to my lonely existence, of never feeling his touch again, seemed suddenly unbearable. "Yes," I breathed, making my choice. He took my hand, leading me up a private staircase I hadn't discovered during my weeks of exploration. It led directly to his bedroom suite, a sanctuary even more private than his office. The room was surprisingly understated. No ostentatious displays of wealth, just elegant simplicity. A massive bed dominated one wall, facing windows that showcased the moonlit ocean. The space felt intimate, personal in a way the rest of the house didn't. "No one comes in here," he said, reading my thoughts. "Not staff, not security. Just me." "And now me," I added softly. He touched my cheek, eyes searching mine. "Last chance to change your mind." Instead of answering, I reached for the buttons of his shirt, undoing them one by one. His breath caught as my fingers brushed against his skin, warm and smooth over taut muscle. "No recordings," I whispered, pressing my lips to his chest. "No wires. Just us." He groaned, pulling me closer. "Just us," he agreed, his voice rough with desire. His hands found the hem of my blouse, lifting it slowly, giving me time to stop him. I raised my arms instead, letting him remove it completely. His eyes darkened as he took in the sight of me, no longer hidden or disguised. "You're beautiful," he murmured, tracing the curve of my collarbone. "The real you is even more exquisite than the woman you pretended to be." I should have felt vulnerable, exposed, and not just physically. For the first time in years, I was myself with someone. No cover story, no false persona. Just Natalia, with all her scars and secrets laid bare. Instead, I felt liberated. I stepped closer, unbuckling his belt, my movements deliberate. "I want to know you too. The real Dario." He captured my wrists gently, bringing them to his lips. "You might not like what you find. Let me decide that." Something shifted in his expression, walls coming down, defenses lowering. He released my hands to pull me against him, his kiss deeper now, hungrier. I responded with equal fervor, pouring years of suppressed emotion into each touch. We fell onto the bed together, hands exploring, breath mingling. Every brush of his fingers against my skin burned away another layer of the person I'd been pretending to be. With each kiss, each caress, Olivia Reed faded further, and Natalia emerged, raw, real, alive with sensations I'd denied myself for too long. "Tell me what you want," he whispered, his weight deliciously heavy above me. "Everything," I answered truthfully. "I want to feel everything." He smiled, not the calculated smile I'd seen him use on others, but something genuine that transformed his face. "That I can give you." His lips traced a path down my body, awakening nerve endings I'd forgotten existed. I arched against him, all thoughts of missions and agencies dissolving under his touch. Nothing existed beyond this room, this moment, this man who saw through every disguise to the woman beneath. When he finally entered me, the sensation was overwhelming. Not just physical pleasure, but emotional connection that threatened to shatter my carefully constructed barriers. I clutched his shoulders, eyes locked with his, unable to look away even if I'd wanted to. "Natalia," he breathed my name like a prayer, his movements slow and deliberate. "My Natalia." The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed me. Instead, it unlocked something primal within me, a desire to belong, to be claimed, to be known. I wrapped my legs around him, pulling him deeper, claiming him in return. "Dario," I gasped, feeling the tension building inside me. "Don't stop." "Never," he promised, his rhythm increasing as he read my body's signals perfectly. "I'll never let you go." Release crashed over me in waves, his name torn from my lips as pleasure rippled through every nerve. He followed moments later, his body tensing above mine before he collapsed beside me, gathering me against his chest as if afraid I might disappear. We lay entangled in each other, breathing slowly returning to normal. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my back while I listened to his heartbeat, strong and steady beneath my ear. "What are you thinking?" he asked eventually, breaking the comfortable silence. I could have lied, should have, perhaps. But I was tired of deception. "That I've broken every rule they taught me," I admitted. "That I should feel guilty, but I don't." His arms tightened around me. And that I'm terrified of what happens next." He shifted, tilting my chin up so I met his gaze. "What do you want to happen next?" The question was deceptively simple. What did I want? For years, my wants had been irrelevant, subordinated to missions, to objectives, to becoming whoever I needed to be. I'd almost forgotten how to have desires of my own. I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I want more time. With you. Like this." His expression softened. "Then take it. Stay." "It's not that simple." "It could be." He brushed hair from my face. "You don't have to go back, Natalia. You could disappear. We both could." The offer was tempting, painfully so. To shed my past completely, to start fresh with this man who somehow saw through all my defenses. "They'd find us," I whispered. "That's what they do. Let them try." There was steel in his voice. "I have resources they can't imagine. Places they'd never look." I placed my palm against his cheek, feeling the stubble beneath my fingers. "You'd leave everything? Your empire? For me?" "For us," he corrected. "And yes, none of it matters if I'm alone." The admission stunned me. This powerful man, who commanded an organization that spanned continents, was offering to walk away from it all. For me, a woman who'd entered his life with the express purpose of destroying him. "Why?" I asked, needing to understand. He was quiet for a long moment, his hand continuing its gentle path along my spine. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Because for the first time since I can remember, I feel whole. Not Dario Moretti the crime boss, not the man everyone fears. Just Dario. The man who wants to wake up next to you every morning." Tears pricked my eyes at the simple truth in his words. I pressed my lips to his chest, tasting the salt of his skin. "When my mother died," I said softly, "I promised myself I'd never need anyone. Never let myself be vulnerable again. And now?" I looked up, meeting his gaze. "Now I'm terrified because I need you. And I don't know how to need someone without losing myself." He cradled my face between his hands, his expression solemn. "I don't want you to lose yourself, Natalia. I want you to find yourself. The real you, not the one they created." The truth of his words resonated deep within me. The agency hadn't saved me, they'd simply replaced one type of loss with another. A different kind of addiction, to adrenaline, to becoming other people, to never having to face my own emptiness. "Stay," he whispered again. "Not forever. Just tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." I nodded, unable to deny what my body and heart were demanding. One night of truth, of connection, before reality intruded again. He pulled me closer, our bodies fitting together as if designed for each other. Sleep began to claim me, deeper and more peaceful than I'd experienced in years. Just before consciousness faded entirely, I heard him whisper against my hair. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Natalia. God help us both." I didn't answer, but in the safety of near sleep, I admitted the truth to myself. I was falling too. And when morning came, nothing would ever be the same. Chapter 10. A week passed in a dreamlike haze. I moved freely through Dario's home, no longer shadowed by guards. At night, I slept in his arms, waking to his touch, his voice, his smile that seemed reserved only for me. During the day, I watched him work, taking calls, meeting with associates, maintaining the empire he'd built. I didn't delude myself about what he did. He was still Dario Moretti, still operated outside the law. But I saw the code he lived by, the loyalty he commanded through respect rather than just fear. I also saw his vulnerability, in quiet moments when he spoke of his childhood, the father who'd beaten him, the mother who'd eventually fled, leaving him behind. The way he'd fought for everything he had, trusting no one until me. And through it all, my secure phone remained silent in the drawer where I'd hidden it. The agency's deadline for contact had come and gone. By now, they'd have declared me compromised or dead. I should have cared more than I did. On the 8th morning, I woke before Dario, slipping from bed to make coffee. As I passed his office, a flashing light on his desk caught my eye. His private phone, the one he never left unattended, displayed a message notification. I hesitated only briefly before entering. The screen showed a text from someone called Marco, the name I'd invented as a lie when Dario caught me. My blood ran cold as I read the message. Agency movement detected. Possible extraction team assembling. 24 to 48 hours. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. They were coming for me. Or for Dario. Or both of us. Finding anything interesting? I spun around to find Dario leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. His expression was carefully neutral, but tension radiated from his body. "They're coming," I said, not bothering to deny I'd snooped. "Your message." "I know." He crossed to the desk, picking up the phone. "My sources have been tracking unusual movements for the past 2 days. Why didn't you tell me?" His eyes met mine. "I was hoping to have a solution before worrying you. Dario, this is my fault. If I just report in, tell them I'm still working." "No." His voice was sharp. "The moment you contact them, they'll track your location. And they won't believe you're still loyal, not after this much silence." He was right. Protocol was clear about missed check-ins. I'd be considered turned or compromised. "Then we need to leave," I said, fear building inside me. "You said you had places they wouldn't find us." He studied my face. "You'd really come with me? Leave everything behind?" "What exactly would I be leaving?" I asked softly. "A job where I'm disposable? An empty apartment? A life of lies?" Something softened in his expression. He pulled me against his chest, his heartbeat steady under my ear. "There's one thing I need to do first," he said. "People I need to protect before we disappear." "Your organization?" "My family. Not blood, but the people who depend on me." His arms tightened around me. "I need a day, maybe 2, to set things in motion. Security for them, funds transferred." I nodded against his chest. "And then?" "And then we go. Somewhere no one will find us." He tilted my chin up. "A new life. Together." The promise in those words made my throat tight. A new life, something I'd stopped believing was possible years ago. "I need to get a message to Walsh," I said suddenly. "Make him believe I'm still working the case." Dario tensed. "It's too dangerous. If I don't, they'll come in hard. People could get hurt." I clutched his arms. "Trust me, Dario. I can buy us time." The conflict played across his face before he nodded reluctantly. "How?" I outlined my plan, a brief message to Walsh, claiming technological issues with my equipment. Enough to delay a full extraction team while we made our arrangements. "Use a secure line," Dario instructed, leading me to a computer I'd never seen before. "This can't be traced back here." I typed a quick message, professional, detached, exactly what Walsh would expect. "Equipment failure. Target suspicious but not hostile. Maintaining cover. Require 72 hours before extraction." Dario read it over my shoulder. Will he believe it? It's what he wants to believe, that his operation isn't blown, that I'm still his loyal agent. I hit send, feeling a strange sense of finality. This is my last act as Natalia the agent. He kissed my temple. "And your first as just Natalia. My Natalia." The words warmed something inside me that had been cold for too long. That afternoon, Dario left for meetings. Setting his exit strategy in motion, he explained. I wandered the house restlessly, torn between excitement and terror at what we were planning. In his bedroom, I opened the closet I now shared with him, running my fingers over the clothes he'd bought for me. Not disguises, not costumes for a role, but things he thought I'd like. Things for the real me. My secure phone buzzed in my pocket. Walsh's response. I hadn't expected him to reply so quickly. Confirmation received. Extraction delayed 72 hours. Maintain position. All assets prepared for final phase. Final phase. The words sent a chill through me. Whatever they were planning, it was bigger than just retrieving me and the files. A second message followed. Compromised agents must be eliminated. Remember your oath. My blood froze. Not a rescue mission, a cleanup operation. If they believed I'd turned, they wouldn't extract me. They'd eliminate me. And anyone close to me. I frantically dialed Dario's number, but it went straight to voicemail. He always turned his phone off during sensitive meetings. I paced the bedroom, mind racing. We needed to leave now, not in a day or two. Walsh's message had been clear. They weren't waiting. The sound of a car on the driveway sent me hurrying to the window. Relief flooded me as I recognized Dario's Maserati. I ran downstairs, meeting him at the door. We need to go. Now. His expression changed instantly, hand moving to the gun I knew he carried. What happened? I showed him Walsh's messages. His face hardened as he read them. Pack what you need, he said, already moving toward his office. Nothing traceable. I'll get the emergency documents. 20 minutes later, we were in his car. Not the Maserati, but an unremarkable sedan kept for situations like this. A bag of cash, 2 sets of passports, and clothes were all we took. As we drove through the gates, I looked back at the mansion. The place where I'd discovered who I really was, where I'd found something I never expected. Having second thoughts? Dario asked, eyes on the road. I placed my hand over his on the gearshift. No. I'm exactly where I want to be. He squeezed my fingers. We'll be off the grid by morning. New identities, new start. I nodded, watching the coastline disappear behind us. For the first time in my life, I wasn't pretending to be someone else. I was simply being me, the woman who had fallen for a man she was supposed to destroy. And as the distance between us and my old life grew, I felt not loss but liberation. I had finally chosen my own mission. Chapter 11. We drove through the night, switching cars twice at locations Dario had prearranged years ago for emergencies. By dawn, we had reached a small lakeside cabin 3 states away, rustic on the outside, secretly fortified within. No one knows about this place, Dario explained as we entered. Not my men, not my enemies. Only me. And now me, I added, echoing our earlier conversation. He smiled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. And now you. The cabin was surprisingly comfortable. Solar power, satellite internet, stocked pantry. A hideout designed for extended stays. Exhausted from our journey, we collapsed onto the bed, still fully dressed. I curled against Dario's chest, his heartbeat lulling me toward sleep. We're safe for now, he murmured against my hair. Get some rest. But as tired as I was, sleep wouldn't come. My mind raced with the implications of Walsh's message. The agency wouldn't give up easily, especially not with what they believed I could access. Dario. I whispered, uncertain if he was still awake. What did you do with it? The thumb drive with the evidence. His body tensed slightly. It's secure. Here. He was quiet for a moment. Do you really want to know? The question carried weight beyond the simple words. Did I want to know where he kept his insurance against the world? The evidence that could destroy not just him, but potentially the very agency I'd worked for? Yes, I said finally. No more secrets between us. He shifted, sitting up to look at me in the dim light filtering through the curtains. His eyes searched mine, still looking for deception even after everything we'd shared. It's in a safe, he said at last. Behind the painting in the bedroom at the mansion. My heart skipped. The one we left behind? Dario, if they search the house. They won't find it, he interrupted. The safe is biometric. It only opens with my fingerprint and retinal scan. Relief washed over me. So it's protected? Yes and no. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. If they bring enough resources, they could eventually break into it. It would take time, specialized equipment. Time we've bought with my message to Walsh, I finished his thought. But not enough. He nodded, his expression grim. I have people watching the house. If there's any sign of a raid, they'll let us know. I bit my lip, considering options. What if we got it first? Went back before they moved in. Too dangerous, he said immediately. If they're watching the property. They're expecting me to be there, I countered. Not making a quick grab and go. I know their protocols, Dario. They'll establish surveillance, confirm my presence, then plan an extraction. We'd have a window. He studied my face. Why are you pushing for this? The evidence mostly protects me, not you. I hesitated, sorting through my own tangled motivations. Because it's not just about protection. It's leverage. Something to negotiate with if they ever find us. A slow smile spread across his face. You think like one of my capos. I'll take that as a compliment. He pulled me closer, pressing his lips to my forehead. Let me think about it. For now, we both need sleep. I nodded, settling back against him. This time, exhaustion won out over anxiety, and I drifted into uneasy dreams. I woke hours later to the smell of coffee. Dario sat at a small table by the window, laptop open, phone pressed to his ear. He spoke rapid Italian, his expression intense. When he noticed me watching, he ended the call with a curt capisco. Problem? I asked, accepting the mug he offered. My sources confirm agency movement, he said grimly. Teams assembling in the city. Not at the mansion yet, but close. Fear tightened my chest. How much time do we have? Hard to say. Could be hours, could be a day. He closed the laptop. I've been thinking about your suggestion. Going back for the drive? He nodded. It's risky, but you're right about its value as leverage. So we do it. I do it, he corrected. Alone. No. I set my mug down forcefully. That's not happening. Natalia. If you go, I go, I insisted. I know the agency's methods, their blind spots. And frankly, I don't trust you not to do something stupidly heroic. He laughed despite the situation. Stupidly heroic? Me? Yes, you. I moved to sit on his lap, framing his face with my hands. I didn't walk away from everything just to lose you now. His expression softened. I've never had someone worry about me before. Get used to it. I kissed him lightly. We're in this together. Partners. Partners, he repeated, like he was testing the word. All right. We go together, but we do it my way. Quick and careful. We spent the next hour planning. Dario arranged for a private helicopter to get us close to the city, where a car would be waiting. We'd approach the mansion through the service entrance at dusk, when the shift change would provide maximum confusion. As we prepared to leave, Dario handed me a small pistol. Do you know how to use this? I gave him a look that made him smile apologetically. Right. Government agent. Sometimes I forget. Good, I said, checking the weapon with practiced ease. That means my training worked. The helicopter ride was tense, neither of us speaking much. As we approached the city, Dario received a text that made him curse. What is it? I asked. Movement at the mansion. My security team reports unmarked vehicles circling the perimeter. My stomach dropped. They're starting surveillance. We need to hurry. The car was waiting as promised, nondescript, with tinted windows. Dario drove, taking back roads I'd never seen during my time at the mansion. Service entrance connects to underground parking, he explained as we approached. Less visible than the main gate. Heart pounding, I scanned for surveillance as we pulled into a hidden driveway camouflaged by dense shrubbery. A guard I recognized nodded once to Dario before opening a concealed garage door. Antonio is trustworthy, Dario said quietly. He's the only one who knows we're here. We moved quickly through service corridors, avoiding the main areas of the house. Everything looked different from this angle, the hidden infrastructure of Dario's world that I'd never been privy to before. Finally, we reached the master bedroom. It looked undisturbed, exactly as we'd left it that morning. Rumpled sheets, my robe still draped over a chair. Dario moved to the painting above the bed, an abstract piece in deep blues and blacks. He pressed his thumb to an almost invisible scanner at the frame's edge, then leaned in for a retinal scan. A soft click, and the painting swung forward, revealing a small safe embedded in the wall. Impressive, I murmured, scanning the room nervously. How long has that been there? Since before you arrived. He smiled slightly. Right above where you slept for weeks. As he reached into the safe, a sound from downstairs froze us both. Voices, multiple sets of footsteps. Security team? I whispered hopefully. Dario shook his head, drawing his gun. My men know to stay quiet in the house. Ice flooded my veins. Walsh. He must have moved up the timeline. Moving silently, Dario retrieved the thumb drive and several passports from the safe. He pressed them into my hand, then gestured toward the bathroom. Secret passage, he mouthed. Behind the shower panel. I nodded, but as we moved toward the bathroom, the bedroom door burst open. Two men in tactical gear rushed in, weapons raised. Federal agents. Hands where we can see them. Dario pushed me behind him, gun still at his side. This is private property, he said calmly. You're trespassing. Moretti, the lead agent acknowledged, eyes flicking to me. And Agent Brooks. Or should I say, former Agent Brooks. The use of my real surname, one I hadn't heard in years, sent shock through me. Walsh must have briefed them about my suspected betrayal. Lower your weapon, Moretti, the agent continued. You're both coming with us. I felt Dario tense, knew he was calculating odds, escape routes. There were only 2 agents in the room, but undoubtedly more throughout the house. Dario, I whispered, squeezing his arm. Don't. Our eyes met in silent communication. A firefight would only end one way. Slowly, he placed his gun on the floor. Smart move, the agent said, moving forward to cuff him. Director Walsh is very eager to speak with both of you. As the cold metal closed around my wrists, I felt the thumb drive pressed against my palm. Dario had slipped it to me in our final moments of contact. His eyes met mine again, a clear message in them. This isn't over. And despite our capture, I believed him. Chapter 12. They separated us immediately. I was taken to a black SUV, Dario to another. The last glimpse I had of him was over my shoulder. His face composed, eyes fixed on mine until the car door slammed between us. The drive was silent, the 2 agents flanking me offering no information about our destination. I recognized the protocol: isolation, disorientation, psychological pressure. I'd helped implement it on targets many times. Now I was the target. We arrived at a nondescript office building downtown, one of the agency's secondary locations, used for sensitive operations. The thumb drive felt heavy in my palm as I was escorted inside and down to the basement level. The interrogation room was painfully familiar: sterile white walls, metal table bolted to the floor, uncomfortable chair. Standard procedure. I was handcuffed to the table and left alone. 20 minutes passed. 30. An hour. More psychological tactics, making me wait, letting anxiety build. Finally, the door opened, and Walsh walked in. He looked exactly as I remembered: salt and pepper hair, crisp suit, cold eyes that revealed nothing. Natalia, he greeted me, setting a folder on the table. Or do you prefer Olivia now? Where's Dario? I asked, ignoring his question. Concerned for your lover? He sat across from me. How touching. And completely contrary to your training. I remained silent, watching him. The thumb drive was clutched in my right hand, hidden beneath the table. You missed your check-ins, Walsh continued when I didn't respond. 5 weeks of silence. We thought you were dead. Until you received my message. Yes, your very convenient message. He opened the folder, removing photos, surveillance images of Dario and me leaving the mansion, getting into his car. Taken the same day you claimed to still be gathering intelligence. I kept my expression neutral. I was maintaining my cover. By fleeing with the target? His voice hardened. We trained you better than this, Natalia. Where is he? Walsh sighed, leaning back. In a similar room down the hall. Surprisingly cooperative, actually. Hasn't asked for a lawyer. Just sits there, smiling occasionally. My heart clenched, imagining Dario alone, surrounded by enemies. But I knew he was strong, calculating. Always planning. What happens now? I asked. That depends entirely on you. Walsh slid a blank legal pad toward me. The files, Natalia. Where are they? So they hadn't found the safe. Small comfort. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. He tapped the table impatiently. Moretti's blackmail files. Our intelligence confirmed their existence months ago. It's why we sent you in. I frowned, confusion genuine. Blackmail files? You told me it was evidence of his operations. Drug trafficking, money laundering. Walsh's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a tell I recognized from years of working with him. He hadn't expected me to know the true nature of what I was sent to find. The files contain evidence of his criminal enterprise, he said carefully. Which is why we need them for prosecution. That's not the whole truth, is it? I pressed, watching his face. What's on those files that has you so desperate, Walsh? Instead of answering, he changed tactics. You've developed feelings for him. Classic Stockholm Syndrome. It happens to undercover agents sometimes. It's not Stockholm Syndrome when you discover your target has more integrity than your handler, I said quietly. Walsh's face hardened. Moretti is going away for life, Natalia. Nothing will change that. The only question is whether you'll be joining him in a cell, or if you'll cooperate and salvage what's left of your career. My career. I laughed humorlessly. The one where I'm sent in without backup or an extraction plan. Where I'm considered disposable. No one is disposable, he said automatically. Your message said otherwise. Compromised agents must be eliminated. Your words, not mine. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. Standard protocol language. You know that. What I know is that Dario told me the truth when you never did. I leaned forward as far as the handcuffs would allow. Those files don't just document his crimes, do they? They implicate people on your side too. Corrupt officials. Dirty cops. Maybe even agents. His silence confirmed my suspicion. How many of them, Walsh? How many people in your world took his money? Made deals? Looked the other way? Enough. He stood abruptly. I didn't come here to debate ethics with you. I came for information. If you won't provide it willingly, there are other methods. The threat hung in the air between us. I'd seen those other methods: psychological manipulation, sleep deprivation, emotional pressure. Not torture in the physical sense, but effective nonetheless. Think it over, Walsh said, moving toward the door. I'll return in an hour. For your sake, I hope you'll be more cooperative. After he left, I unclenched my fist, looking at the tiny drive that had caused so much chaos. The key to freedom, or deeper imprisonment, depending on how I played this. True to his word, Walsh returned an hour later. But this time, he wasn't alone. 2 agents wheeled in a television on a cart. What's this? I asked, eyeing the setup warily. Something to help you decide where your loyalties lie. He nodded to one of the agents, who turned on the TV. The screen showed a live feed of another interrogation room. Dario sat handcuffed to a table, his expression calm despite the situation. A clock in the corner showed the current time, confirmation this was happening now. Streaming in real time, Walsh confirmed, watching my reaction. Every room in this facility is monitored. What's your point? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady at the sight of Dario. My point is that his fate is in your hands. Walsh moved closer. The files, Natalia. Where are they? Before I could answer, the door to Dario's room opened on the screen. A man in a suit entered, someone I didn't recognize. Who is that? I demanded. Agent Kelly, specialist in enhanced interrogation. Walsh's voice was deliberately casual. He's quite effective. Cold fear snaked through me. You can't do this. Moretti has rights. He's entitled to a lawyer, a proper arrest. Rights. Walsh laughed. The Patriot Act suspended those rights for individuals like Moretti years ago. As far as the world is concerned, he's not even here. On screen, Kelly circled Dario's chair slowly. Dario remained impassive, only his eyes tracking the agent's movement. This is your last chance, Walsh said. Tell me where the files are, or watch what happens next. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. What would Dario want me to do? The files were his insurance, his protection. Giving them up would leave him defenseless. But watching him be tortured would be unbearable. Kelly stopped behind Dario, placing his hands on his shoulders in a gesture that looked almost friendly. He leaned down to whisper something in Dario's ear. Then, unexpectedly, Dario smiled. Not a grimace of fear, not a forced brave face, a genuine smile, as if he'd heard something amusing. He turned his head slightly, saying something I couldn't hear. Kelly straightened, his expression changing from confidence to confusion. What's happening? I asked, watching the strange interaction unfold. Walsh frowned, clearly as puzzled as I was. He grabbed a phone from his pocket, dialing quickly. What's going on in room B? Why isn't Kelly proceeding with? He stopped mid-sentence, listening to whoever was on the other end. His face went ashen. At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Red emergency lights strobed in the hallway outside. What the hell? Walsh spun toward the door as it burst open. An agent I didn't recognize appeared, breathless. Sir, we have a situation. Multiple breach points. Armed intruders in the building. They've already reached the lower level. Walsh's eyes shot to me, then to the screen where Dario still sat, now openly smirking. Understanding dawned on me in a flash. Dario hadn't come unprepared. He'd let himself be captured, knowing his men would come for him. Secure the prisoner. Walsh barked, pointing at me. And get Moretti to the transport bay immediately. The agent moved toward me, but another explosion rocked the building, throwing him off balance. The lights flickered, then died completely. In the darkness, I felt rather than saw Walsh rush from the room. Emergency lighting kicked in moments later, dim red bulbs that cast eerie shadows across the walls. I yanked frantically at my handcuffs, but they held firm. On the screen, now operating on backup power, I saw Dario's room in similar red emergency lighting. But Dario was no longer in his chair. The camera angle changed, showing a wider view of the room. Kelly lay unconscious on the floor. Dario stood over him, free of his restraints, retrieving a key from the agent's pocket. The door to my interrogation room flew open again. I tensed, expecting Walsh or another agent. Instead, Dario himself stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the red light. You're a hard woman to rescue, he said, crossing to me quickly. He produced Kelly's key, unlocking my handcuffs with practiced ease. How did you? I began, but he cut me off with a swift kiss. Later. We need to move now. He pulled me to my feet, leading me into the corridor where chaos reigned. Agents ran in all directions, shouting orders. Gunfire echoed from distant parts of the building. My men created diversions at multiple points, Dario explained as we moved against the wall, avoiding the main traffic. But they won't last long. We reached an emergency stairwell, climbing rapidly toward ground level. I was acutely aware of the thumb drive still clutched in my hand, the evidence that could destroy so many lives. "Dario," I said as we paused at a landing. "I have it. The drive." His eyes widened slightly. "You kept it hidden?" "Through everything." I nodded, showing him the small device. "Walsh doesn't know." A rare, genuine smile spread across his face. "That's my girl." The endearment warmed me even amidst the chaos. We continued upward, emerging finally into the building's lobby, now eerily deserted. Through the glass doors, I could see police cars and SWAT vehicles surrounding the building, lights flashing. Our exit was completely blocked. "Now what?" I asked, panic rising. Dario took my hand, leading me not toward the front, but deeper into the lobby. "There's always another way out." He approached what looked like a maintenance door, punching a code into the keypad. "How do you know the code?" I asked, amazed. "I make it my business to know everything about my enemies," he replied as the door clicked open, "including the blueprints to their buildings." The door revealed a service tunnel, likely for trash collection or deliveries. At the far end, a black SUV waited, engine running. We rushed toward it, freedom tantalizing close. As we reached the vehicle, I heard Walsh's voice echo through the tunnel. "Natalia, stop." I turned to see him standing at the tunnel entrance, gun raised. His face was a mask of fury and betrayal. "Don't do this," he called. "He's using you. Once he has the files, you're expendable to him." I looked at Dario, who waited by the SUV door, hand extended toward me. In his eyes, I saw not calculation or manipulation, but something I'd never expected to find in this life: love, trust, partnership. I made my choice. Taking Dario's hand, I climbed into the SUV. As we pulled away, I watched Walsh through the rear window, growing smaller in the distance. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" I asked Dario as we emerged onto a side street, slipping into evening traffic. He took my hand, bringing it to his lips. "I planned for the possibility. I always have contingencies. And now?" "Now we disappear," he said simply. "Together." As we drove away from the city, I looked down at the thumb drive in my hand, the key to our freedom, the linchpin of our future. And for the first time in my life, I felt not like an agent, not like a cover identity, but like a woman making her own choices. Whatever came next, it would be on our terms. Chapter 13. 3 days after our escape, we reached a private airstrip in the desert. The sun was setting, painting the landscape in brilliant oranges and reds as a small jet waited on the tarmac. "Last chance to change your mind," Dario said softly as we stood beside the car, our meager belongings at our feet. I looked at him, this man who'd upended my world. "Are you trying to get rid of me?" "Never." He touched my face, eyes serious. "But I need you to be sure. Once we get on that plane, there's no going back." "I made my choice days ago," I said, leaning into his touch. "I'm not leaving you now." Relief flickered across his features. He nodded once, then gestured to the plane. "Then let's go." The pilot, another of Dario's seemingly endless supply of loyal employees, asked no questions, simply handed us documents for our new identities. Mr. and Mrs. Daniel and Nina Reyes, citizens of Argentina. "My mother was Argentine," Dario explained as we settled into the luxurious cabin. "I have property there, connections that even Walsh doesn't know about." As the plane took off, I watched America disappear beneath us. Everything I'd known, my job, my apartment, my identity as Natalia Brooks, fading into the darkness. I should have felt something, regret, perhaps, or fear. Instead, I felt only a profound sense of liberation. The flight was long. Somewhere over Central America, Dario fell asleep, his head resting against the window. I studied his face in repose, the sharp lines softened, the constant vigilance temporarily suspended. It struck me that this might be the first time since our escape that he'd truly relaxed. Quietly, I removed the thumb drive from my pocket. The innocuous black plastic held so much power, evidence that could topple not just Dario's empire, but potentially parts of the government itself. I turned it over in my palm, considering. What would happen if I destroyed it? If I erased the leverage that both protected and endangered us? Before I could pursue the thought further, Dario's hand closed over mine. Thinking of throwing it into the ocean? He asked, voice rough with sleep. Would that be so terrible? To start fresh, without this hanging over us. He sat up straighter, fully awake now. That drive is the only thing keeping us alive, Natalia. The only reason Walsh hasn't sent every international asset after us. You think he's afraid of what's on it? I know he is. Dario took the drive, tucking it securely into his jacket. And so should you be. What exactly is on there, Dario? What did I risk everything for? He studied me for a long moment, then sighed. Not here. When we're secure, I'll show you everything. We landed at a private airfield outside Buenos Aires. A car was waiting, prearranged through channels Dario assured me were untraceable. As we drove through the night, the city lights faded behind us, replaced by rolling countryside dotted with estancias. Where are we going? I asked, watching unfamiliar landscape pass by. My mother's family home. His voice softened with rare nostalgia. She left when she was 18, fell in love with my father. But she never sold the property. It's been maintained all these years waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to need it. He glanced at me. For us, as it turns out. The estate was nothing like I'd imagined. Not a fortress or a mansion, but a sprawling single-story hacienda nestled against rolling hills. Flowering vines climbed the white stucco walls, and a courtyard fountain trickled peacefully in the moonlight. It's beautiful, I whispered as we stepped from the car. It's safe, Dario replied, but I caught the pride in his voice. No one associates this place with me. According to all records, it belongs to a reclusive widow who never leaves the property. And the actual widow? Generously compensated to maintain that fiction. He smiled slightly. She lives in Madrid now. Quite happily. An older couple greeted us at the door. Marta and Eduardo, the caretakers. They welcomed Dario with obvious affection, speaking rapid Spanish that I struggled to follow. They've known me since I was a boy, he explained as they showed us to our room. My mother brought me here a few times before she left. The pain in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. I squeezed his hand, offering silent comfort. Our room was large and airy, with French doors opening onto a private garden. It felt worlds away from danger, from the agency, from our former lives. That first night, we slept for 12 hours straight, the deep, dreamless sleep of the physically and emotionally exhausted. When I woke, sunlight streamed through gauzy curtains, and Dario was gone. I found him in the study, laptop open, the thumb drive connected. He looked up as I entered, expression unreadable. It's time you knew what you risked everything for, he said, turning the screen toward me. For the next hour, I scrolled through files, recordings, documents, photographs. Evidence of corruption at every level. Police chiefs taking bribes, judges dismissing cases, politicians accepting campaign contributions in exchange for legislative favors. And there, in a folder labeled simply Agency, I found Walsh. Photos of him meeting with known criminals. Voice recordings of deals being struck. Money trails leading to offshore accounts. He's been playing both sides for years, Dario said quietly. Using the agency to eliminate his criminal competition while protecting his partners. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Not that Walsh was corrupt, I'd begun to suspect that, but the scale of his deception. The lives sacrificed for his ambition. All those missions, I whispered. All those targets I helped bring down. How many were just Walsh cleaning house? Dario closed the laptop gently. Does it change your decision? Knowing this. I considered the question seriously. Did learning that my former life was built on lies make me regret choosing this new one? No, I said finally. If anything, it confirms I made the right choice. Relief flickered across his face before he masked it. Good. Because there's something else you should know. He led me out to the terrace, where morning sun warmed the flagstones. In the distance, horses grazed in green pastures, a peaceful scene that contrasted sharply with the turmoil of recent days. "I'm out," Dario said suddenly. "Out of what?" "The business. All of it." He turned to face me. "I activated protocols the day we were captured. My organization is being dismantled, assets transferred, territories divided among my lieutenants." I stared at him, stunned. "Your empire, everything you built, was always a means to an end." He took my hands in his. "Security, power, control. Things I needed once, but not anymore." "Why?" "Because I want a life with you more than I want an empire without you." His voice was quiet but certain. "And I'm not fool enough to think we could have both." The magnitude of what he was giving up, for me, for us, left me speechless. "You don't need to decide anything now," he continued, misinterpreting my silence. "We're safe here. We have time." "I've already decided," I said, finding my voice. "I want to stay with you here." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise, rare and beautiful in its honesty. For 3 weeks, we settled into a new routine. Mornings in the garden, afternoons exploring the estate, evenings planning our future. We were Daniel and Nina Reyes to the outside world, learning to inhabit these new identities while rediscovering who we really were beneath all the masks. I learned to ride horses, something I'd never done before. Dario spoke more of his childhood, of his mother's abandonment, of the father who'd shaped him through cruelty. I shared stories of foster homes, of the loneliness that had defined my early years. Slowly, cautiously, we built something neither of us had experienced before: trust. Intimacy beyond the physical. A partnership based on choice rather than necessity. Then one morning, I woke violently ill, barely making it to the bathroom before emptying my stomach. Dario found me there, pale and shaking. "You're sick," he said, concern etching his features. "I'll call the doctor." "No doctors," I insisted. "It's probably just something I ate." He looked unconvinced but didn't argue. The next day, the same thing happened. And the next. Always in the morning, always passing by midday. On the 4th day, when Dario left to speak with Eduardo about security upgrades, I asked Marta to drive me into the village. My Spanish was rudimentary, but enough to purchase what I needed from the small farmacia. Back in our bathroom, I stared at the pregnancy test in my hand, heart pounding. 2 minutes that felt like an eternity. When the result appeared, I sat heavily on the edge of the tub, the plastic stick trembling in my fingers. Positive. I was carrying Dario Moretti's child. The irony wasn't lost on me. I, who had spent years living lies, was now faced with the most profound truth. A new life, created from what had begun as deception. Panic rose in my throat. What kind of mother could I be? What kind of future could we offer a child, living in hiding, always looking over our shoulders? Before I could process further, I heard Dario calling my name. I quickly wrapped the test in tissue, burying it in the trash. "There you are," he said, appearing in the doorway. "Marta said you went to the village. Is everything all right?" "Fine," I lied, the word bitter on my tongue after weeks of honesty between us. "Just needed some air." His eyes narrowed slightly, sensing the deception. But he didn't press, just offered his hand. "Come. I want to show you something." He led me to the stables, where a sleek black mare stood saddled and waiting. "She's yours," he said, watching my reaction. "Eduardo says you're ready for your own horse." The thoughtfulness of the gesture, the permanence it implied, made my throat tight with emotion. "Thank you," I managed, stroking the mare's velvet nose. "You don't seem happy," he observed, too perceptive as always. I forced a smile. "I am. Just tired." He studied my face, then nodded slowly. "Rest then. We have all the time in the world." But as I watched him walk away, the weight of my secret heavy between us, I wondered if that was true. If our precarious peace could withstand this new complication. That night, I packed a small bag while Dario was meeting with security contacts in the study. I left a note on the pillow, simple, direct, heartbreaking. *I need time. Please don't follow me. I'll contact you when I can. I'm sorry. *. As I slipped out to the car I'd arranged with Marta's help, tears blurred my vision. I was running again, not from danger this time, but from happiness. From the possibility that this fragile new life we'd created, both figuratively and literally, could actually work. By dawn, I was on a bus heading north, one hand resting protectively on my still flat stomach. Running had always been my response to fear. But this time, I wasn't just running from something. I was running for someone, the child who deserved a mother who knew who she really was, who wasn't afraid of love, who could offer stability instead of chaos. I just needed time to become that woman. Time, and distance from the man whose absence already felt like a physical wound. Chapter 14. 2 weeks after leaving the hacienda, I found myself in a small coastal town on the northern Argentine coast. I'd rented a modest apartment overlooking the sea, paying cash and using yet another false name, Anna this time. Old habits. My mornings still began with sickness, my nights with dreams of Dario. I'd left to find clarity, but my thoughts remained tangled, complicated by the growing life inside me. I sat on my tiny balcony, watching fishing boats return to harbor as the sun set. The old plastic pregnancy test, the one from the hacienda, lay on the table beside me, its positive result no longer a shock but a reality I was slowly accepting. A knock at the door startled me. I reached instinctively for the gun I kept hidden beneath the sofa cushion, another habit I couldn't shake. "Who is it?" I called, approaching cautiously. "Delivery," came the response, a woman's voice, local accent. I hadn't ordered anything. Warning bells rang in my mind. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman in a pharmacy uniform holding a small package. She seemed harmless, but I'd learned long ago that appearances meant nothing. "Leave it at the door," I instructed. "I need a signature, Senora." I sighed, keeping the gun hidden in the folds of my dress as I opened the door just wide enough to sign her clipboard. She handed me the package with a smile and left. Inside the plain brown wrapping was a prenatal vitamin supplement and a note in familiar handwriting. *, take care of yourself. Both of you. D*. My hands trembled. He'd found me. Of course he had. Dario Moretti didn't lose what belonged to him. And somehow, despite my best efforts to disappear, I still belonged to him. But he hadn't come himself. Hadn't forced me to return. The gesture was both comforting and unsettling. He was giving me space, but watching from a distance. That night, I took the first vitamin with a glass of water, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back seemed different somehow, no longer the perfectly controlled agent or the passionate lover who'd fled Dario's bed. Someone new was emerging, shaped by the life growing inside me. "Who are you?" I whispered to my reflection. "Who do you want to be?" The next morning, after the usual sickness subsided, I walked to the local clinic. The doctor was an older woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner who spoke enough English to bridge my limited Spanish. "First baby?" she asked as she prepared the ultrasound. I nodded, throat tight with unexpected emotion. "The father?" she inquired gently. "Not here," I managed, leaving it deliberately vague. She squeezed my hand in understanding before applying the cold gel to my still flat stomach. "Let's meet your little one." The grainy image on the screen meant nothing to me at first, just shadows and light. Then the doctor pointed to a small pulsing spot. "There," she said softly. "Your baby's heart. Strong and steady." The rhythmic whooshing sound filled the room, fast, determined, alive. My child's heartbeat. Dario's child. Something cracked open inside me, a wall I'd built long ago when my mother left me for the last time. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. "It's normal," the doctor assured me, handing me a tissue. "Very emotional, yes?" But it wasn't normal, not for me. I didn't cry. Not when foster parents sent me back. Not when I was injured in the field. Not even when I'd left Dario. Yet here I was, undone by the sound of a heartbeat. "Everything looks perfect," the doctor continued, printing a small image of the ultrasound. "About 8 weeks along, I think." 8 weeks. I counted backward. The night after our first real kiss, when Dario and I had finally given in to what had been building between us for weeks. The night I'd felt truly myself for the first time in years. "Come back in 1 month," the doctor instructed, handing me the printout and a prescription for more vitamins. "And try not to worry so much. Your baby doesn't know about your problems." I walked back to my apartment in a daze, the ultrasound image clutched in my hand. Inside my small kitchenette, I taped it to the refrigerator, a declaration to myself that this was real, that I couldn't run from this truth. That evening, as the sun set over the ocean, I sat on my balcony and did something I hadn't allowed myself to do since leaving the hacienda. I thought about Dario. Not with anxiety or confusion, but with honesty. I'd left because I was afraid, not of him but of the future. Of building a life on what had begun as a lie. Of failing at the one thing I'd never been trained for, family. My own mother had abandoned me. What made me think I could be any different? But as I placed my hand on my stomach, feeling a connection to the tiny life within, I realized I already was different. I hadn't run from responsibility, I'd run toward it. Toward becoming someone worthy of being a mother. The question was, could I be that person with Dario, or did I need to forge this path alone? As darkness fell, I made a decision. I wouldn't return to him yet, I still needed time to find my footing in this new reality. But I wouldn't hide either. I took out my phone, a new one, untraceable, and sent a text to the secure number I'd memorized but sworn never to use. *, we're both fine. Thank you for the vitamins. I need more time, but not forever. N*. His response came minutes later, just 3 words that somehow contained everything. "I'll be waiting." That night, I slept without nightmares for the first time in weeks, one hand resting protectively over the place where my child, our child, grew stronger each day. In the morning, I would begin preparing. Not just for the baby, but for whatever came next. Because if there was one thing I knew with absolute certainty, it was that my time alone would be limited. Either Dario would come for me, or our enemies would find me first. And I needed to be ready for both possibilities. Chapter 15. A month passed in the coastal town. My days fell into a routine: morning walks on the beach, afternoon naps as pregnancy fatigue overtook me, evenings watching the sunset. Local shopkeepers began to recognize me, offering small nods of greeting. For the first time in my life, I was just a person, not an agent or a cover identity. My stomach had begun to round slightly, a gentle curve that I found myself touching unconsciously throughout the day. The morning sickness eased, replaced by strange cravings and a new alertness to the world around me. I sent Dario weekly updates, brief messages confirming my continued health, nothing that could give away my location, though I suspected he already knew. He responded with equal brevity, never pressuring me to return, never mentioning his own activities. The space between us was both painful and necessary. A time for me to reconcile who I had been with who I needed to become. I was returning from the market one afternoon when the sensation of being watched prickled along my spine. I continued walking normally while scanning reflections in shop windows, cataloging faces, noting a black sedan that had circled the block twice. My instincts, dulled by weeks of peace, roared back to life. Someone was following me, and not Dario's men, who would have been more discreet. I took a circuitous route home, using old techniques to confirm my suspicion. By the time I reached my apartment, certainty had solidified into dread. The watchers weren't agency. Their methods were too crude. Which meant someone else had found me. Inside, I quickly packed essential items into a small bag: clothes, cash, the ultrasound picture. As I reached for my gun, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The Giacomo family sends regards. Your presence is requested. Cold fear washed over me. The Giacomos, one of Dario's main rivals, a family known for particular brutality. How had they found me? What did they want? The answer came in the next message. Moretti cares for you. This makes you valuable. Come quietly, or neighbors suffer. They thought I was leverage, a way to control Dario. They didn't know about the baby at least. Small mercies. I considered my options. Running meant putting innocence at risk. Contacting Dario meant admitting I couldn't handle this myself, that I needed his protection after all. Pride warred with practicality as I peered through the curtains. Two men stood by the black sedan across the street, not bothering to hide their surveillance now. A third leaned against a lamppost near my building's entrance. They were closing in, confident I had nowhere to go. Making my decision, I texted Dario. Giacomo's found me. 3 men outside. More nearby, most likely. Will handle, but wanted you to know. His response was immediate. Don't engage. My people 30 minutes out. Stay inside. I almost smiled. Still giving orders, still expecting obedience. Some things never changed. But I didn't have 30 minutes. The men were already entering my building. I could hear heavy footsteps on the stairs. I needed to move now. I tucked the gun into my waistband, covered by a loose shirt. The fire escape outside my bathroom window offered the only exit they wouldn't be watching. I grabbed my bag and climbed out just as a heavy knock sounded at my front door. Senora? We know you're in there. I descended as quietly as possible, reaching the alley below as the sound of my door being broken down echoed from above. Keeping to shadows, I moved quickly away from the building, one hand protectively over my stomach. My plan was simple: create distance, find a crowded place, blend in until Dario's men arrived. I'd survived worse situations before becoming pregnant. I could handle this. I'd made it 2 blocks when the black sedan pulled alongside me. Before I could react, 2 men emerged, moving with practiced efficiency. Ms. Brooks, one said in accented English. Please don't make a scene. We only want to talk. I stepped back, calculating odds, escape routes. I don't know who you think I am. We know exactly who you are, the second man interrupted. Former agent. Moretti's woman. Our insurance policy. My hand tightened on the gun beneath my shirt. Whatever you want from Dario, I can't help you. Oh, but you can. The first man smiled coldly. He'll give us anything to keep you safe. Territory, supply routes, maybe even those famous files everyone wants. The mention of the files confirmed my fear. This wasn't random. The Giacomos were making a calculated move to take advantage of Dario's perceived weakness, me. You're mistaken about my importance to him, I said, continuing to back away. I don't think so. Our sources say he's gone soft over you. Dismantling operations, withdrawing from territories. The man stepped closer. The great Dario Moretti, undone by a woman. Pathetic. I saw my opening as they closed in, overconfident in their numerical advantage. Drawing my gun in one fluid motion, I aimed at the first man's knee and fired. He went down with a scream. His partner reached for his own weapon, but I was already moving, using the chaos to sprint down a side street. Shouts followed me, then the sound of running footsteps. Adrenaline pumped through my veins as I cut through narrow alleys, heading toward the crowded market area. A bullet pinged off a wall near my head. I ducked, heart pounding not just for myself now, but for my baby. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about protection. I reached the market, pushing through crowds of shoppers and tourists. Behind me, I could hear the Giacomo's men, their bulky forms conspicuous as they shoved people aside. My breath came in quick gasps, the exertion taxing my pregnant body in a way it wouldn't have just months ago. I needed to hide, to regain my strength. I slipped into a small restaurant, moving quickly through the kitchen despite protests from staff, and out the back door into another alley. There, I crouched behind garbage bins, gun ready, fighting to control my breathing. My phone vibrated. Dario again. 5 minutes out. Where are you? I typed quickly. Restaurant alley behind market. 2 men in pursuit. Armed. 3 dots appeared as he typed, then, stay hidden. Almost there. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The pregnancy was sapping my strength, making me vulnerable in ways I'd never experienced before. For the first time in my career, I found myself hoping for rescue rather than planning my next move. A noise at the alley entrance snapped me back to alertness. One of the Giacomo men stood there, gun drawn, scanning the shadows. I held perfectly still, controlling even my breathing as he moved closer. One shot, that's all I would have before his partner arrived. It needed to count. He passed my hiding spot, moving deeper into the alley. I raised my gun, aiming carefully. Before I could fire, the sound of screeching tires filled the air. Car doors slammed, followed by shouted commands. Relief weakened my knees as I recognized the voice issuing those commands. Dario, arriving exactly when promised. Gunfire erupted at the front of the alley. The man turned toward the noise, exposing his back to me. I could have taken the shot, ended the threat permanently. Instead, I called out, "Drop your weapon. You're surrounded." He spun, firing wildly in my direction. A bullet grazed my arm, the sharp pain breaking through my control. I returned fire, my shot more precise, hitting his shooting hand. His gun clattered to the ground as he howled in pain. From the alley entrance, Dario appeared, flanked by two of his men. His eyes found mine in the shadows, relief and fury warring in his expression. I stepped out from my hiding place, gun still trained on the wounded Giacomo man. "Your timing's improved," I said, aiming for lightness despite the trembling in my limbs. Dario's gaze swept over me, cataloging the blood on my arm, the paleness of my face. In 3 long strides he reached me, one hand cupping my cheek while the other gently examined my wound. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" he asked, voice tight with controlled emotion. I shook my head. "Just a graze." His men secured the Giacomo gunman, while Dario led me toward a waiting SUV with tinted windows. Once inside, he pulled me against his chest, his heartbeat rapid beneath my ear. "I told you not to engage," he murmured into my hair. "They didn't give me much choice." His arms tightened around me. "The baby." "Fine," I assured him, realizing as I said it that I knew this with certainty, that maternal instinct had already taken root in me. "We're both fine." He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. "I'm taking you home, Natalia. No more running. No more hiding from each other." The word home caught in my chest, a concept I'd never truly understood until Dario. "Until us." I nodded, suddenly too exhausted to argue. "Home." As the SUV pulled away, Dario's arm secure around me, I realized the danger had accomplished what weeks of solitude couldn't, clarity. I belonged with him. Whatever challenges came, we would face them together. Including the new life we'd created, growing stronger despite it all. Chapter 16. The journey back to the hacienda took hours, a circuitous route designed to ensure we weren't followed. Dario kept me tucked against his side, his fingers absently tracing patterns on my arm as he issued quiet instructions to his men by phone. When I drifted off to sleep, exhaustion finally claiming me, his voice followed me into dreams, deep, reassuring, protective. I woke as we pulled through the gates of what Dario had called home. In the soft glow of early morning, the hacienda looked exactly as I'd left it, peaceful, removed from the chaos of our lives. "You didn't change anything," I observed as he helped me from the car, his hand lingering on my waist. "I was hoping you'd come back," he said simply. Inside, Marta rushed forward, clucking over my injury and the dark circles under my eyes. She spoke rapidly to Dario in Spanish, her tone scolding despite his position. "What's she saying?" I asked as she ushered me toward the bedroom. Dario's mouth quirked. "That I should have brought you back sooner. That you're too thin. That men are idiots who don't understand pregnant women need rest, not excitement." I laughed, the sound surprising me after weeks of solitude and the fear of the previous day. "She's not wrong." His expression softened. "No, she's not." Marta insisted on drawing me a bath, bringing tea and toast to the bathroom despite my protests that I could manage myself. As I soaked in the warm water, I heard her and Dario conversing in the hallway, his deep voice and her rapid responses punctuated by what sounded like instructions. When I emerged, wrapped in a soft robe, the bedroom was empty but for Dario, who stood by the French doors overlooking the garden. "Better?" he asked, turning to face me. I nodded, suddenly aware of the awkwardness between us. Lovers who had shared everything, then nothing, now thrust back together by circumstance rather than choice. "The Giacomos," I began, needing to address the danger first. "How did they find me?" "Not through me," he said quickly. I had men watching you, yes, but at a distance. Discreetly. Then how? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. They've been tracking anyone associated with me since I began withdrawing from operations. When I dismantled certain businesses, they sensed weakness and started digging. And they found me. They found a woman living alone, paying cash, with no history in the system. His jaw tightened. It wouldn't take much to connect the timing with my changes. I moved to the bed, sitting on its edge. What will they do now? Nothing, he said with chilling certainty. I've sent a message that ensures they'll never come near you again. The cold efficiency in his voice reminded me of who he was, who he had been before me. A man who solved problems permanently. You killed them? I asked, not sure if I wanted confirmation. I did what was necessary to protect what's mine. His eyes locked with mine, challenging me to object to his methods. I should have been appalled. The agent in me should have condemned his violence, his disregard for law. But the woman in me, the mother-to-be, felt only relief that the threat was eliminated. Thank you, I said finally, for coming when I called. He crossed the room, kneeling before me and taking my hands in his. I will always come for you, Natalia. Always. The intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. Even after I left you. Especially then. He reached up, tucking a damp strand of hair behind my ear. I understood why you ran. I gave you the space you needed. But I never stopped watching over you. The vitamins, I said softly. The weekly reports from the doctor I thought I'd chosen myself. He smiled slightly. You're observant as ever. And you're still controlling. Protective, he corrected, his smile fading. There's a difference. I touched his face, relearning the contours I'd missed during our separation. Is there? I'm trying to find it, he admitted, vulnerability flashing in his eyes. I've never cared for anyone the way I care for you. For both of you. His gaze dropped to my slightly rounded stomach. I'm learning as I go. The honesty in his admission broke through the last of my reservations. This was Dario as I'd never seen him, open, uncertain, human. We both are, I whispered. He hesitated, then asked the question I'd been avoiding. Why did you leave, Natalia? Really? I drew a deep breath, organizing thoughts I'd been untangling for weeks. I was scared. Not of you, but of us. Of building a life, a family, on what started as a mission to destroy you. You think our foundation is too broken to build on? I think I needed to understand who I am without a mission, without a cover identity. I placed his hand on my stomach, where our child grew. I needed to know I could be a mother, not just an agent pretending to be one. Understanding dawned in his eyes. And now? Now I know that whatever roles we played when we met, what grew between us was real. I squeezed his hand. Is real. He rose from his knees to sit beside me on the bed, his arms circling my shoulders. I've missed you, he said simply. I leaned against him, the familiar scent and warmth of him easing something tight in my chest. I missed you too. Don't leave again, he murmured into my hair. Whatever you need, space, time, distance, we'll find it together. I won't, I promised. We're stronger together. We stayed like that, reconnecting in silence until Marta knocked at the door, announcing lunch was ready in the garden. Dario helped me dress, his touch gentle as he buttoned a loose blouse over my growing bump. You're showing more, he observed, eyes warm with pride. 16 weeks now, I replied. Doctor says everything looks perfect. His hand lingered on my stomach. I want to be there for the next appointment. I'd like that. In the garden, a table had been set beneath flowering vines, simple food arranged attractively on colorful plates. Dario held my chair, then sat opposite me, watching as I ate with the increased appetite of the second trimester. We need to discuss security, he said once I'd satisfied the initial hunger. The Giacomos won't be a problem anymore, but others might try the same approach. I nodded, unsurprised by the shift to practical matters. You think I'm your weakness? I know you are, he corrected. You and the baby. The only vulnerabilities I have left. So what do you suggest? Locking me in the hacienda for the next 5 months? He smiled slightly. Tempting, but no. I'm suggesting we adapt. Move regularly, use different identities. Stay ahead of threats rather than reacting to them. Like we're on the run? Like we're being strategic. He reached across the table for my hand. Until the baby comes, at least. Then we can reassess. The thought of constant movement, of looking over my shoulder while pregnant, made my stomach tighten. But the alternative, being used as leverage against Dario, was worse. Okay, I agreed. But I have conditions. His eyebrow arched. I'm listening. Regular doctor visits. Proper prenatal care. And we make each place feel like home, however temporary. I squeezed his fingers. I won't raise our child in fear, Dario. His expression softened. Agreed. As we finished lunch, Dario's phone rang. He checked the screen, frowning slightly. I need to take this. Security matters. He stepped away, speaking in low tones I couldn't quite catch. When he returned, his expression had hardened into the mask I recognized from our early days. The crime boss, not the man. Problem? I asked, immediately alert. Possibly. He sat beside me, taking my hands. My sources say there's unusual activity in the agency. Movement of teams, resources being allocated. Cold fear slid down my spine. Walsh. Most likely. He's been quiet since our escape, too quiet. Dario's eyes met mine, serious and direct. We may need to move sooner than I'd planned. I nodded, the peaceful moment shattered by the reminder that our enemies weren't just criminal rivals, but an entire government agency with global reach. How soon? Tonight, he said grimly. My jet is being prepared. As if on cue, Eduardo appeared at the garden entrance, his expression tense. Sir, perimeter sensors have been triggered. Northern boundary. Dario was on his feet instantly, pulling me up beside him. Get the car ready. Protocol 7. Eduardo nodded once and disappeared. What is it? I asked, heart racing. Giacomo's. No. Dario's voice was tight as he guided me quickly toward the house. This is different. More organized. Realization hit me with sickening clarity. The agency. They found us. His silence was confirmation enough. As we reached the house, the distant sound of helicopter rotors filled the air. How? I whispered. We were so careful. Dario's arm tightened around me. It doesn't matter now. What matters is getting you and our child to safety. The fierce protectiveness in his voice steadied me. Whatever came next, we would face it together. This time, neither of us was running away. Chapter 17. Dario led me through the house at a pace that tested my pregnant body, his grip on my hand firm but gentle. The sound of helicopter rotors grew louder, no longer distant but directly overhead. How many exits? I asked, slipping into agent mode despite myself. 4, he replied tersely. North and east are likely compromised. We'll take the tunnel. Tunnel. A grim smile flashed across his face. You didn't find all my secrets during your cataloging work. In the study, he moved to a bookshelf that looked identical to the others lining the walls. His fingers pressed a sequence of spots along the wooden frame, and the entire unit slid silently aside, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Motion sensors will have already alerted my security team, he explained, guiding me through the opening. They'll meet us at the exit point. The staircase led to a concrete passage lit by dim emergency lights. It smelled of earth and metal, cool air raising goosebumps on my skin. We moved quickly, the sounds from above fading until only our footsteps and breathing filled the space. How long have you had this? I asked, wondering what other contingencies Dario had prepared for. Since I inherited the property, he answered, checking his phone, likely for updates from his team. My mother's father built it during political unrest. family tradition to have an escape route. A cynical part of me wondered if that's what I was to Dario, an escape route from his old life. A chance at redemption. The thought vanished as an explosion rocked the tunnel, dust and small debris raining from the ceiling. "They're breaching the house," Dario said grimly, urging me forward. "Move faster." We broke into a jog, my hand protective over my stomach as we navigated the increasingly rough passage. After several minutes, the tunnel began to slope upward. Ahead, a metal door gleamed in the emergency lighting. Dario tapped a code into a keypad beside it. Nothing happened. He tried again, cursing under his breath. "The explosion must have damaged the electrical system," he muttered, examining the door. "We'll have to force it." He pressed his shoulder against the metal, muscles straining. Slowly, the door creaked open, revealing a small clearing in dense undergrowth. A shed stood nearby, camouflaged to blend with the surroundings but clearly man-made. "The car should be inside," Dario said, scanning the area before guiding me toward the structure. The clearing was eerily quiet. No birdsong, no insect noise, just the distant thump of helicopter rotors. The hairs on the back of my neck rose in warning. "Dario," I began. The first shot cut through the silence, kicking up dirt at our feet. Dario shoved me behind him as more gunfire erupted from the trees surrounding us. "The shed!" he shouted, drawing his own weapon and returning fire. We sprinted the short distance, bullets pinging off trees and ground around us. Dario reached the door first, yanking it open and pushing me inside before following. The interior was dim but functional. A black SUV parked ready, weapons cache on one wall, supplies stacked neatly on shelves. Dario moved immediately to the guns, selecting a semi-automatic rifle and extra ammunition. "Get in the car," he ordered, checking the weapon with practiced ease. Driver's side. "Be ready to move when I say." I obeyed, sliding behind the wheel as more bullets struck the shed's exterior. The keys were already in the ignition, part of Dario's meticulous planning. Through the window, I watched him crouch by the door, calculating angles, timing. Outside, voices shouted instructions, military precision that confirmed my fears. This was no rival cartel. This was a professional extraction team, likely agency-trained. Dario glanced back at me, eyes meeting mine across the small space. In that moment, something passed between us, a silent acknowledgement of the danger, the possibility that one or both of us might not survive this. "I love you," I called to him, the words escaping before I could consider them. His expression softened briefly. "I know." Then he kicked the door open and opened fire, providing covering suppression as he shouted, "Now. Go." I turned the key, the engine roaring to life. Flooring the accelerator, I drove straight through the shed's rear wall, designed, I realized, to break away under pressure. The SUV burst into the forest beyond, branches scraping against metal as we gained speed. In the rearview mirror, I saw Dario sprint from the shed toward us, still firing methodically at unseen targets. He was nearly to the car when a bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. "Dario!" I screamed, slamming on the brakes. He recovered his balance, continuing toward us as blood darkened his shirt. Behind him, figures emerged from the trees. Tactical gear, assault rifles, coordinated movements. Agency, without a doubt. I leaned across to open the passenger door as Dario reached us, diving into the seat. "Drive!" he gasped, clutching his wounded shoulder. I accelerated again, zigzagging through trees as bullets shattered the rear window. Dario twisted in his seat, returning fire with his good arm until the pursuing agents were out of range. "Stay on this track," he directed, voice tight with pain. "It connects to a service road 2 miles ahead." I followed his instructions, heart pounding as I navigated the rough terrain. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he dismissed, though his pallor contradicted his words. "Flesh wound. You need a doctor. What I need is to get you somewhere safe." He checked the side mirror. "They'll be coming after us. Probably already called in our direction to the helicopter." As if summoned by his words, the sound of rotors grew louder again, approaching from our right. "We can't outrun a helicopter," I said, panic edging into my voice. "We don't need to." Dario grimaced as he reached beneath his seat, retrieving a small black case. Just need to buy time until nightfall. The forest thinned ahead, revealing the promised service road, narrow but paved. I turned onto it, accelerating as the SUV found smoother terrain. Above and behind us, the helicopter appeared, spotlight sweeping the road. Dario opened the case, revealing what looked like a small grenade. Smoke bomb, he explained, rolling down his window despite the wind that whipped through the car. When I say so, slam on the brakes. Hard. Are you insane? They'll be right on top of us. Trust me, Natalia, he said, eyes intense despite the pain etching lines around them. I've done this before. The helicopter drew closer, its spotlight finding our vehicle. In the side mirror, I could see a man leaning from the open door, rifle aimed in our direction. Now! Dario shouted. I stomped the brake pedal, tires screaming as the SUV skidded. Dario leaned out his window, throwing the smoke bomb directly up toward the helicopter. It detonated midair, releasing a thick cloud of purple smoke that engulfed the aircraft. Go! He yelled, and I floored the accelerator again, speeding away as the helicopter veered erratically, temporarily blinded by the smoke. Where now? I asked, adrenaline making my voice shake. Left at the next fork, Dario directed, slumping back in his seat. Then the third right. There's an old barn we can hide in until dark. I followed his directions, constantly checking mirrors for pursuit. The helicopter had fallen back, but I knew it wouldn't be for long. And ground units would be mobilizing to cut us off. How did they find us? I asked, the question that had been burning since the first shots were fired. Dario's face hardened. Someone betrayed us. Only a handful of people knew about the hacienda's connection to me. One of your men? He shook his head, then winced at the movement. More likely someone higher up. Someone with access to both criminal intelligence and agency resources. Walsh, I whispered, the pieces clicking into place. He's using agency resources to eliminate his own liability. Makes sense. Dario pressed his hand tighter against his wound. If those files ever became public. He didn't finish the thought, but he didn't need to. Walsh's corruption would be exposed, along with however many officials and agents were implicated alongside him. We reached the barn Dario had mentioned, an abandoned structure half hidden by overgrown vegetation. I pulled the SUV inside, cutting the engine. In the sudden silence, Dario's labored breathing seemed unnaturally loud. Let me see your shoulder, I insisted, turning on the overhead light. He moved his hand reluctantly, revealing a blood-soaked shirt and a ragged wound beneath. The bullet had gone through clean, but he'd lost too much blood. It needs proper treatment, I said, using my scarf to create a makeshift pressure bandage. And antibiotics. In the back, he directed, voice weaker than before. Emergency kit. Red case. I retrieved it, finding basic medical supplies including wound dressings and a bottle of broad-spectrum antibiotics. Working quickly, I cleaned and bandaged his shoulder as best I could, using skills acquired during agency training. That should hold until we can get you real help, I said, helping him swallow the antibiotics with water from a canteen. He caught my hand as I worked, his grip surprisingly strong despite his injury. Natalia. Save your strength, I told him. We need to. Listen to me, he interrupted, eyes intense. If something happens to me. Nothing is going to happen to you, I said fiercely. If it does, he continued undeterred, there's an account in Switzerland. Access codes are in the lining of my wallet. Enough money to keep you and the baby comfortable for life. I shook my head, unwilling to consider the possibility. We're going to get through this together. Of course we are, he agreed, but the shadow in his eyes betrayed his uncertainty. But you needed to know. A sudden cramp seized my abdomen, sharp and unexpected. I gasped, doubling over as pain radiated outward. Natalia. Dario straightened despite his injury, concern flooding his face. What is it? I don't know, I managed through clenched teeth. A cramp, I think. Another wave hit, stronger than the first. I looked down in horror to see a small dark stain spreading on my pants. Blood. The baby, I whispered, fear unlike anything I'd ever known washing over me. Dario, something's wrong with the baby. His face paled further, but his voice remained steady. We need to get you to a hospital. Now. They'll be watching hospitals, I reminded him, trying to think clearly through the pain and fear. I don't care. His expression was resolute as he shifted to the driver's seat, ignoring the renewed bleeding his movement caused. Some things are more important than staying hidden. As he started the engine, another cramp twisted through me, bringing tears to my eyes. I clutched my stomach, whispering desperate pleas to the child within. Hold on, little one, I murmured, feeling more vulnerable than I ever had facing armed enemies. Please hold on. Dario's hand found mine, squeezing gently as he navigated back to the road. You're the strongest woman I've ever known, Natalia. Both of you will make it through this. I promise. In the fading light, as we raced toward an uncertain future with enemies behind and new danger ahead, I clung to that promise like a lifeline. Our child, the ultimate evidence of how a mission to destroy had transformed into something beautiful, deserved a chance at life. And I would do anything to ensure they got it. Even if it meant risking everything we'd fought to protect. Chapter 18. White hospital walls surrounded me when I woke, the antiseptic smell and rhythmic beeping of monitors instantly recognizable. For a moment, panic seized me. Had we been captured? Then I felt the warm weight of Dario's hand clasping mine, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my skin. You're awake, he said softly, relief evident in his voice. I blinked, memories flooding back. The escape, the gunfire, the blood. My free hand flew to my stomach, fear clenching my heart. The baby. I whispered, afraid to hear the answer. Safe. Dario squeezed my hand. You both are. It was threatened miscarriage, but the doctors stopped it. You need rest, but they're optimistic. Tears of relief spilled down my cheeks. You got us to a hospital. A private clinic, he corrected, glancing toward the door where I could see the shadow of someone standing guard. Owned by an old friend who owes me several favors. No records. No questions. I noticed then that his shoulder was properly bandaged, a sling supporting his injured arm. You got treatment too. After I knew you were stable. His eyes, shadowed with exhaustion, held mine intently. You scared me, Natalia. I scared myself. I shifted slightly, wincing at the tenderness in my abdomen. How long have I been here? 18 hours. They sedated you to help your body relax. He brushed hair from my forehead with his good hand. The doctor wants you on complete bed rest for at least a week. The implications sank in slowly. A week in one place. Exposed. Vulnerable. Walsh will find us, I said quietly. Let him try. Dario's voice hardened. I have men surrounding this place. More arriving hourly. Anyone who tries to get to you will have to go through them. And me. The fierce protectiveness in his tone both comforted and troubled me. More people risking their lives for us. More potential casualties in a war that had begun with my deception. This can't go on forever, I said, gesturing vaguely to encompass our situation. Running. Hiding. Living in fear. It won't. Dario's jaw tightened. Once you're stronger, we'll implement the next phase of my plan. Which is? He hesitated, clearly reluctant to burden me with details while I was recovering. Dario, I pressed. No more secrets between us, remember? He sighed, relenting. There's a boat waiting in Montevideo. Once you're cleared for travel, we'll make our way there. Then internationally to a place where neither the agency nor my former associates have reach. Where? New Zealand. Remote property on the South Island. New identities already established. His thumb continued its gentle path across my knuckles. A fresh start. The care he'd taken with these arrangements, likely made while I was away, touched me deeply. You've thought of everything. I try to. A shadow passed over his face. Though I didn't predict Walsh would find us so quickly at the hacienda. That failure nearly cost us everything. The guilt in his voice was unmistakable. Despite his usual confidence, this brush with disaster had shaken him, particularly because it had endangered not just him, but me and our child. "It wasn't your fault," I said softly. "It was." His voice turned hard. "I missed something. Someone betrayed us, and I should have seen it coming." Before I could respond, a knock at the door preceded a doctor's entrance, a petite woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes that belied her brisk manner. "Good to see you awake," she said, checking the monitors beside my bed. "How's the pain?" "Scale of 1 to 10. 3, I answered honestly. "Manageable." She nodded approvingly. "The bleeding has stopped completely. Your hormone levels are stabilizing. The baby's heartbeat remains strong." Relief washed through me again at this confirmation. "Thank you for saving my baby. You did most of the work yourself." She smiled slightly. "You have a fighter in there." "Like mother, like child," Dario murmured, pride evident in his voice. The doctor checked my vital signs, made notes on a tablet, then turned to Dario. "She needs rest. Real rest, not just physical but emotional. No stress. No excitement." Her pointed look made clear she understood our circumstances, at least partially. "Understood," Dario said, his tone that of a man accustomed to giving orders, not receiving them. Yet for my sake, he was deferring to her expertise. After she left, silence settled between us. I studied Dario's face, the fatigue etching lines around his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the vigilance that never fully left his expression even here in this secured space. "You should rest too," I told him. "You're injured. Exhausted." "I'll rest when we're safe," he dismissed. "And when will that be?" I asked, the question that had been haunting me for weeks finally finding voice. "When will we ever truly be safe, Dario? As long as those files exist, as long as Walsh knows we have them, he'll never stop hunting us." Dario's expression darkened. "You think we should destroy them? Our only leverage?" "I think we should consider all options," I said carefully, "including making a deal." "A deal?" He laughed humorlessly. "With Walsh? The man who sent armed teams to kill us?" "Not with Walsh. Above him." I met his skeptical gaze steadily. "There are people in the government who would be very interested to learn about a corrupt agency director. People with the power to offer immunity in exchange for evidence." Dario stood, pacing the small room despite his injury. "Immunity for you, perhaps. Not for me. My crimes aren't so easily forgiven." "You've withdrawn from your operations. Cut ties with your organization. That counts for something." "Not enough," he said flatly. "And even if by some miracle they offered immunity, do you really think they'd let us live in peace? We'd spend our lives looking over our shoulders, wondering when some ambitious prosecutor would decide to reopen the case." He had a point. The system I'd once believed in hadn't exactly proven itself trustworthy. "Then what's your solution?" I asked. "Run forever? Raise our child in hiding?" His pacing stopped. He turned to face me, expression resolute. "My solution is to eliminate the threat permanently." Cold realization washed over me. "You're going after Walsh." "I'm going to end this," he corrected. "One way or another." "It's too dangerous," I argued, struggling to sit up despite the pain the movement caused. "He has resources you can't match. An entire agency at his disposal. He's also desperate. Making mistakes." Dario returned to my side, gently easing me back against the pillows. "The attack on the hacienda wasn't sanctioned. He's operating off-book, using personal connections rather than official channels." "How can you be sure?" "Because I still have sources inside the agency," he replied. "Not everyone is loyal to Walsh. Some remember what the organization stood for before he corrupted it." This revelation surprised me. Even in our intimate moments, Dario had never mentioned agency contacts. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" He hesitated, something like guilt flashing across his features. Because it would have complicated things between us. What do you mean? He drew a deep breath, as if preparing himself. One of my contacts was placed there 3 years ago. By me. The implication hit me like a physical blow. You had someone inside the agency before we even met? Before I was assigned to you? He nodded, watching my reaction carefully. I've been monitoring their operations for years. It's how I stayed ahead of investigations. Did you know about me? I demanded, hurt and confusion flooding through me. Before I approached you at the gala? Did you know I was coming? No, he said firmly. Not specifically. I knew they were planning something, but the details, you, were a surprise. I wasn't sure whether to believe him. The idea that our meeting might have been less chance and more calculation on his part threatened the foundation of what had grown between us. So your contact, I pressed, they've been feeding you information all along? Even while I was undercover at your house? Yes, he admitted, not bothering to deny it. But Natalia, it doesn't change anything between us. What happened, what's still happening, is real. It changes everything, I whispered. It means you had more control over the situation than I ever realized. That you might have been playing me just as much as I was playing you. Pain flashed across his face at my accusation. Is that what you think? That these months, everything we've shared, has been some elaborate game to me? I don't know what to think anymore. I turned away, overwhelmed by this new information and what it might mean for us. He caught my chin gently, turning my face back to his. Then let me make it absolutely clear. Yes, I had information. Yes, I used it to protect myself. But the moment I met you, all the strategic advantages in the world couldn't have prepared me for what I felt. His eyes, usually so guarded, were completely open now, vulnerable in a way I'd rarely seen. I fell in love with you, Natalia. Against all logic, against my own self-preservation instincts. And every decision I've made since has been to protect that love. To protect you and our child. The raw honesty in his voice made my throat tight with emotion. But you kept this from me. Even after we promised no more secrets. Because I was afraid, he admitted, the confession clearly costing him. Afraid you'd see it as manipulation rather than what it was, survival. I considered his words, searching his face for any hint of deception. Finding none, I sighed, the anger draining from me as quickly as it had risen. No more secrets, I said firmly. Not even the ones you think might hurt me. We face everything together from now on. Understood. Relief softened his features. Understood. I shifted carefully, making room beside me on the narrow hospital bed. Come here. He hesitated, mindful of my condition. The doctor said. The doctor said I need rest and no stress, I interrupted. And right now, what I need to rest properly is you beside me. He complied, gingerly settling next to me, his good arm cradling me against his chest. Tell me about New Zealand, I requested, needing to focus on something hopeful. This fresh start you've planned. As he described the remote farmhouse, the surrounding mountains, the peace we might find there, I closed my eyes, allowing myself to imagine that future. A home. Safety. Our child growing up surrounded by beauty rather than danger. It was a beautiful dream. But as I drifted towards sleep, the reality of our situation remained stark in my mind. To reach that future, we would have to survive the present. And with Walsh hunting us, with Dario planning some form of counterstrike, the path ahead was fraught with peril. Yet for the first time, I felt something close to hope. Not because our circumstances had improved, but because the truth, all of it, was finally between us. Whatever came next, we would face it without secrets or lies between us. It was more than I'd ever had before. And for now it was enough. Chapter 19. 5 days passed in the private clinic, each hour marked by increasing restlessness on Dario's part. He paced the small room when he thought I was sleeping, spoke in hushed tones on burner phones that were discarded after each call, and rarely left my side except to confer with his security team. The doctor, Elena, I'd learned, seemed pleased with my progress. The bleeding hadn't returned, and morning ultrasounds confirmed our baby continued to develop normally despite the trauma. "You're healing well," she told me during her evening check. "Another 2 days of observation, then bed rest can continue elsewhere." After she left, I turned to Dario, who stood by the window scanning the street below. "You heard that? 2 more days, then we can move to the boat." He didn't respond immediately, his posture rigid with tension. "Dario." "Walsh is getting closer," he said finally, turning to face me. "My contact says he's narrowed our location to this region. It won't take him long to connect the dots to this clinic." Fear tightened my chest. "Then we leave early." "Not in your condition." He crossed to the bed, taking my hand. "You heard Elena. 2 more days." "We might not have 2 days," I argued, struggling to sit up straighter. "Better to risk moving than to be trapped here." He shook his head, resolute. "The baby needs stability right now. We stay until Elena clears you." The protectiveness in his voice brooked no argument, but concern nagged at me. "What aren't you telling me?" His expression flickered, that slight tell I'd learned to recognize when he was withholding something. "Nothing that should worry you." "Dario," I warned. "No secrets, remember?" He sighed, relenting. "My contact is coming here. Tonight. With information that could end this." "End it how?" "Evidence against Walsh. His finances, his connections, his off-books operations." Dario's eyes hardened. "Enough to destroy him before he can destroy us." Understanding dawned on me. "You're not planning to run. You're planning to fight back." "I'm planning to end the threat permanently," he corrected. "So we can stop running." The determination in his voice unsettled me. This wasn't just about survival anymore. There was a vengeance in his tone that echoed the crime boss I'd been sent to destroy. "And after you expose Walsh?" I asked carefully. "What happens to your contact inside the agency?" "They'll be protected," he assured me. "New identity, new location. I take care of those loyal to me." "And the agency itself? The legitimate operations, the agents who aren't corrupt?" He studied me, understanding the real question behind my words. "You still feel loyalty to them?" "Not to Walsh," I clarified. "But yes, to the mission I believed in. To protecting people from genuine threats." "Even though they sent you on a suicide mission? Even though they're hunting us now?" "That's Walsh, not the entire agency," I argued. "There are good people there, Dario. People who joined for the right reasons, like I did." He considered this, his expression softening slightly. "What would you suggest?" The question surprised me. Dario rarely solicited opinions on strategy, especially where his own safety was concerned. "Surgical," I said after a moment's thought. "Target Walsh and his inner circle with the evidence. Go above him, to oversight committees who can't ignore documented corruption. Leave the rest of the agency intact." "More merciful than he deserves," Dario muttered. "Not mercy. Strategy." I squeezed his hand. "Destroy the entire agency, and you make enemies of people who might otherwise be indifferent to us. Target only those who deserve it, and the rest might actually be grateful." A slight smile touched his lips. "Always the tactician." "I learned from the best," I returned, allowing myself a small smile as well. His phone buzzed with a text. He checked it, expression growing serious again. "My contact will be here in an hour. I need to ensure security is in place." As he turned to leave, I caught his hand. "Be careful." He leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. "Always am." After he left, I struggled out of bed despite doctor's orders, needing to feel less vulnerable. I dressed in clothes Dario had brought from our hasty escape, loose pants to accommodate my growing belly, a soft blouse, comfortable shoes. Just the simple act of replacing the hospital gown made me feel more capable, more like myself. Through the window, I watched darkness fall over the small town where the clinic was located. Streets emptied as shops closed, leaving only the occasional car passing beneath the yellow glow of streetlights. It seemed peaceful, ordinary, so at odds with the danger closing in around us. The door opened behind me. Expecting Dario or Elena, I turned with a ready smile that froze on my face. Walsh stood in the doorway, alone but clearly armed, his expression a mixture of triumph and disgust. "Hello, Natalia," he said softly, closing the door behind him. "Or do you prefer Mrs. Moretti these days?" Cold fear washed through me, followed immediately by calculation. Where was Dario? Where was security? How had Walsh gotten past them? "How did you find me?" I asked, buying time as I assessed options. No weapon within reach. Door blocked. Window a possibility, but 3 stories up. "You're getting sloppy," he replied, remaining by the door. "Or perhaps pregnancy has dulled your edge." His gaze dropped to my stomach, visible now beneath the fitted blouse. Something like revulsion crossed his features. "His child," Walsh said with distaste. "You really have gone all in on your betrayal, haven't you?" "What do you want?" I demanded, ignoring the jab. "What I've always wanted." He stepped further into the room. "The files. And assurance that what's on them never sees the light of day." "I don't have them here," I said truthfully. "No, but Moretti does. And he'll give them to me to save you." His smile was cold. Touching, how much he seems to care for his little traitor. The insult stung less than the implication. "You're using me as bait." "I prefer to think of it as leveraging an asset." Walsh checked his watch. "Moretti should be returning from his security check any minute. He'll find me here with you, we'll negotiate terms, and this unfortunate chapter will close." "And what are those terms?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "The files, of course. All copies. And your permanent disappearance." His expression hardened. No loose ends this time. The threat was clear. Once Walsh had what he wanted, we wouldn't be leaving alive. "Dario won't agree to that," I said with more confidence than I felt. "For you." Walsh laughed softly. He'd burn his empire to the ground. "Oh wait, he already has." I took a subtle step toward the bedside table, where a metal water pitcher sat. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. "How did you get past security?" I asked, needing to understand the situation fully. "Money opens many doors." He shrugged. "Your boyfriend's men aren't as loyal as he believes." The betrayal hit hard. After everything, someone close to Dario had sold us out. "Who?" I demanded. "Does it matter? You'll be dead before you can warn him." The cold calculation in his voice chilled me. This was the real Walsh, stripped of the mentor facade he'd maintained during my years with the agency. A man who eliminated problems without remorse. "You know he'll kill you for this," I said quietly. "He can try." Walsh drew his gun, holding it casually at his side. "But unlike you, I don't underestimate my opponents." Footsteps sounded in the hallway outside. Too heavy to be Elena, too deliberate to be a nurse. "Dario." Walsh moved toward me quickly, positioning himself behind me with the gun pressed to my temple. "Not a word," he whispered as the door began to open. Dario stepped into the room, immediately freezing at the sight before him. His eyes, usually so controlled, flashed with a fury that transformed his entire being. "Release her," he said, voice deadly quiet. "Close the door, Moretti," Walsh countered. "Slowly." Dario complied, never taking his eyes from mine. I could see him assessing the situation, calculating odds, searching for an opening. "Your security has been compromised," Walsh continued. "My men have this building surrounded. So let's dispense with heroics and discuss terms." "The only terms we'll discuss," Dario replied, "is how quickly you want to die." Walsh laughed, the sound vibrating against my back. "Still the tough guy. But we both know you won't risk her. Or the baby." At the mention of our child, something shifted in Dario's expression, a coldness descending that I recognized from our earliest days together. The crime boss re-emerging from beneath the man I'd come to love. "What do you want?" he asked flatly. "The files. All copies. Now." "And in return?" Walsh's gun pressed harder against my temple. "I might let her live." The The child too. Though raising a criminal's bastard seems a harsh punishment in itself. I felt rather than saw Dario's control slipping. The files aren't here. Don't insult me, Walsh snapped. You never go anywhere without your insurance policy. You have a copy with you. On a drive, in the cloud, somewhere. Dario's hand moved slowly toward his jacket. And if I give it to you, what guarantee do I have that you'll let us go? My word as a gentleman, Walsh said mockingly. Not good enough. Dario's eyes met mine, communicating something I couldn't quite read. I need assurances. You're not in a position to negotiate, Walsh reminded him, shifting the gun slightly. The files. Now. Time seemed to slow as Dario reached inside his jacket, retrieving not a thumb drive but a small device I recognized from agency training, a remote detonator. Actually, Dario said calmly, I am. Walsh tensed behind me. What is that? Insurance of a different kind. Dario held up the device. While you were busy finding us, I was busy planting charges in your house, your car, your mistress's apartment. One push, and your entire life goes up in flames. The gun at my temple wavered slightly. You're bluffing. Am I? Dario's smile was cold. You found us through a traitor in my organization. Did it never occur to you that I might have people in yours as well? Uncertainty flickered across Walsh's face, the first crack in his confident facade. Dario pressed the advantage. The contact I was meeting tonight? Works for you. Has for years. Gave me access to everything, your security codes, your schedule, the names of everyone you've ever bribed or blackmailed. His thumb hovered over the detonator. So here are my terms. Release Natalia, walk away, retire somewhere quiet, and we never cross paths again. Walsh's breathing accelerated against my back. And if I refuse? Then I press this button, and while your life burns to the ground, every piece of evidence my contact has gathered goes to the FBI, CIA, and major news outlets simultaneously. The standoff stretched between them, two dangerous men accustomed to getting their way, neither willing to yield. I remained still, knowing any movement might trigger Walsh's increasingly unsteady hand. The baby kicked inside me, as if sensing the tension, and I fought to keep my breathing even. You're lying, Walsh said finally, but doubt had crept into his voice. Test me, Dario replied simply. See what happens. Another moment passed, endless and taut. Then, with a muttered curse, Walsh lowered the gun from my temple. This isn't over, he warned, stepping away from me. It is for you, Dario countered. Walk away now, stay gone, and you might just live to enjoy your retirement. Keeping the gun aimed in our general direction, Walsh backed toward the door. You think you've won? There will always be someone coming for you, Moretti. Always someone who knows what you are, what you've done. Perhaps, Dario acknowledged. But it won't be you. The door closed behind Walsh with a soft click that belied the violence of the confrontation. Immediately, Dario crossed to me, gathering me into his arms with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the coldness he'd shown moments before. Are you hurt? He asked, hands framing my face. No, I managed, trembling with delayed shock. The baby's fine too. He pressed his forehead to mine, exhaling slowly. I nearly lost you. The detonator, I whispered. Was it real? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Real enough to make him doubt. Which was all we needed. And your contact? The traitor. His expression darkened. Identified. Dealt with. We're secure now, but we need to move immediately. Walsh won't stay gone for long. As if on cue, his phone buzzed. He checked it, relief crossing his features. The boat is ready. Transport waiting behind the clinic. Can you travel? I nodded, determination replacing fear. I can do whatever we need to do. He kissed me then, brief but fierce. That's my girl. 20 minutes later, as we slipped out the clinic service entrance to a waiting car, I glanced back at the building that had been both sanctuary and trap. From a window on the 3rd floor, Elena watched our departure, her expression unreadable. Dario followed my gaze. She'll be taken care of, he assured me. New clinic, new start, far from here. Another person uprooted because of us, I said quietly. By her choice, he reminded me. She could have turned us in at any point. The car pulled away, merging seamlessly into night traffic. As the clinic disappeared from view, I felt something shift inside me, not the baby this time, but something deeper. A realization that our past would always follow us, that the lives we'd led would continue to create ripples affecting others. This will never really be over, will it? I asked softly. Dario's hand found mine in the darkness, strong and steady. Not entirely. But we'll put enough distance between us and the past to build something new. Something better, I added, thinking of our child. Something worth fighting for, he agreed, his other hand coming to rest on my rounded stomach. As the car carried us toward the port, toward the next phase of our escape, I leaned against Dario's shoulder and allowed myself to believe in possibilities I'd once thought forever beyond my reach. A home. A family. Peace. Not a perfect ending, perhaps, but a beginning full of promise. Chapter 20. 1 year later. Morning mist clung to the mountains surrounding our farmhouse, turning the landscape into something from a fairy tale. I stood on the porch, cradling my coffee mug with both hands, breathing in the crisp New Zealand air that still felt novel after a year. Behind me, through the open door, I could hear Dario's deep voice mingling with the happy babbling of our son. Marco had his father's dark hair and my green eyes, a perfect blend of us both. At 6 months old, he was already showing a determination that made us both laugh in recognition. Stubborn like your mother, Dario would say, lifting Marco high above his head to delighted squeals. Strategic like your father, I would counter, watching Marco manipulate us both with perfectly timed smiles. The journey here had been long and circuitous. 3 months at sea on Dario's yacht, moving between small ports, never staying anywhere long enough to be noticed. By the time we reached New Zealand's South Island, my pregnancy was well advanced, my body round and heavy with new life. We'd arrived at the farmhouse just 2 weeks before Marco's birth, barely enough time to settle in before I went into labor during a spectacular thunderstorm. With no chance of reaching the nearest hospital, Dario had delivered our son himself, his hands steady despite the fear I'd seen in his eyes. I've never been so terrified, he'd admitted afterward, cradling Marco against his chest while I rested. Not in firefights, not facing down rivals, not even when Walsh had a gun to your head. You didn't show it, I told him, exhausted but elated. You were perfect. Life had settled into a rhythm since then, quiet days tending the small farm, nights spent planning our future, always with one eye on security. Dario's network of contacts kept us informed of developments in the world we'd left behind, though such updates came less frequently now, the threads connecting us to our past growing thinner with time. Walsh had disappeared 3 months after our escape from the clinic. Whether he'd taken Dario's warning to heart or met a more permanent end, we didn't know. Either way, the immediate threat he posed had faded. The agency had undergone a quiet restructuring, with several high-level officials suddenly retiring or transferring to less prestigious positions. The files had done their work, it seemed, even without public exposure. Footsteps on the porch planks pulled me from my thoughts. Dario appeared beside me, Marco balanced on his hip. The sight still caught me sometimes. This dangerous man who had once commanded an empire, now doting on his son with unabashed adoration. He's hungry, Dario said, passing Marco to me. Again. Growing boy, I replied, settling into the porch swing to nurse. Takes after his father. Dario smiled, the expression coming more easily to him now than it had a year ago. He sat beside us, one arm draped across my shoulders as he watched our son with quiet wonder. I received word from Antonio this morning, he said after a moment. The last of the arrangements is complete. I glanced up, understanding the significance. So it's official? We're dead. He nodded. According to every record that matters. Dario Moretti and Natalia Brooks died in a boating accident off the coast of Brazil. Bodies never recovered. A strange feeling washed over me, not quite grief, but acknowledgement that those versions of ourselves were truly gone now. How does it feel? I asked. To no longer be Dario Moretti? He considered the question seriously. Like putting down a heavy burden I've carried since childhood. This, he gestured to our surroundings, to Marco, to me, feels more real than anything that came before. I understood exactly what he meant. My years as an agent, moving between identities like changing clothes, had left me uncertain of who I really was. But here, as Elizabeth Clark, my new legal name, I felt authentic in a way I never had before. David Clark suits you, I told him, using his new identity. Even if I still think of you as Dario in my head. You can call me whatever you want, he replied, brushing a kiss against my temple. As long as you call me yours. The easy affection between us was another change, one I treasured. The walls we'd both maintained for so long had gradually fallen away, leaving something deeper and more honest in their place. Marco finished nursing and wiggled impatiently, eager to continue exploring the world. I adjusted my shirt and let him sit on my lap, his little hands reaching for anything within grasp. Antonio also mentioned interest in the Auckland property, Dario continued, letting Marco grab his finger. We could expand if you wanted. Build something larger. This is enough, I said, looking around at the modest farmhouse that had become home. More than enough. He nodded, understanding. We'd both lived with excess, me with the agency's resources, him with his criminal wealth. This simpler life, focused on essentials, felt like a cleansing. We still had money, of course. Accounts Dario had established years ago under various names, converted now to legitimate investments that supported us comfortably. But conspicuous consumption held no appeal for either of us anymore. I was thinking, I said, shifting Marco to my shoulder, about planting an orchard on the south slope. Apples, maybe pears. Something Marco could help with as he grows. The thought of our son's future, a normal, peaceful future so different from either of our childhoods, filled me with fierce protectiveness. You're planning years ahead, Dario observed, a pleased note in his voice. Isn't that what parents do? Most parents didn't start out trying to destroy each other, he pointed out, though his tone held no bitterness. I laughed softly. We took the scenic route to parenthood. Marco began to fuss, ready for his morning nap. I stood, bouncing him gently as I moved toward the door. Dario followed, his hand resting lightly at the small of my back, a touch that had become as natural as breathing. Inside, the farmhouse was warm and bright, renovated over the past year to suit our needs. Family photos adorned walls that had once been bare. Marco's birth, his first smile, the three of us by the nearby lake. Normal moments captured and displayed as if we'd always been just an ordinary family. I laid Marco in his crib, watching as his eyes grew heavy. Dario stood beside me, his presence solid and reassuring. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, I whispered, not wanting to disturb our drowsy son. That we made it here. That we made him. I knew we would, Dario replied, his voice equally soft. From the moment you told me about the baby, I knew we'd find a way. I turned to face him, studying the face I'd first approached as a target, then feared as an enemy, then loved despite every reason not to. When did you know? I asked, a question I'd never voiced before. That what was between us was real, not just part of the mission. He considered, his eyes never leaving mine. The day you defended me in your mind. When I showed you the boy I was helping, Vega's nephew. I saw something change in your eyes then. Something true breaking through the role you were playing. His perception startled me. You saw that? I see everything about you, Natalia. He still used my real name in private, a small acknowledgement of our shared past. I always have. The simple truth of it moved something deep within me. To be seen, truly seen beyond disguises and personas, had been my unspoken longing for as long as I could remember. Marco's breathing deepened as he fell asleep, tiny hands relaxed at his sides. We watched him for a moment in contented silence before moving to the kitchen, where afternoon sun streamed through wide windows. As Dario made fresh coffee, I leaned against the counter, admiring the easy confidence of his movements. The dangerous edge that had once defined him hadn't disappeared entirely. It showed itself occasionally when something threatened what he cared about, but it had been tempered, channeled into protecting rather than controlling. I've been thinking, he said, handing me a steaming mug. About the future. Marco's future, specifically. What about it? He should have siblings, Dario said, watching for my reaction. Not too many, we're not starting a football team. But maybe one more. Or two. The suggestion caught me by surprise, though not unpleasantly. I'd been so focused on Marco, on establishing our new life, that I hadn't thought much beyond the present. You want more children? I want a proper family, he clarified. Something neither of us had growing up. Brothers or sisters who look out for each other. Sunday dinners that are loud and chaotic. Holidays that actually mean something. The vision he painted was so far removed from the man I'd been sent to investigate that I might have laughed, had I not seen the sincerity in his eyes. I'd like that too, I admitted. Though maybe we should wait until Marco's sleeping through the night before we add to the chaos. He smiled, pulling me against him. Agreed. But it's something to look forward to. We stood together in the sunlit kitchen, coffee forgotten as his lips found mine in a kiss that still held the power to make my heart race. When we separated, his expression had grown serious again. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his pocket. I've been waiting for the right moment. He produced a small velvet box, simple and unadorned. My breath caught as he opened it, revealing a ring. Not the ostentatious diamond one might expect from a former crime boss, but a band of twisted gold holding a single emerald. It matches your eyes, he said softly. The real color, not the contacts you wore when we met. I stared at the ring, then at him, momentarily speechless. We're already legally married in our new identities, he continued. But I wanted to ask you properly, as ourselves. As Dario and Natalia, before those names fade completely from our lives. He took my hand, his touch gentle but sure. Marry me. Not because our cover requires it, not because of Marco, but because what began as the greatest deception of my life has become its greatest truth. Tears blurred my vision, not from sadness but from a joy so acute it was almost painful. I'd given up on finding this kind of love long before I met him, convinced my life as an agent left no room for genuine connection. Yes, I whispered, voice catching. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, where it settled as if it had always belonged there. Then he drew me close again, his arms encircling me completely. You're not my enemy, he murmured against my hair. You're my only peace. The words resonated through me, a perfect description of what we'd found together. In a world that had taught us both to trust no one, to show no weakness, we had stumbled into something rare and precious. A love born from deception but transformed into the deepest truth either of us had ever known. Outside, mist continued to cling to the mountains, shrouding our little farm in protective secrecy. Inside, wrapped in each other's arms, we stood as survivors of a war no one else would ever fully understand. I had pretended to love him to steal his secrets. Now I truly loved him, and together, we were building a life where secrets no longer stood between us. The end.